2 years, fellas.
Yes.
I know.
Too long.
It seems like a lifetime almost, right? So anyway, so Beth handed this to me and said I had to read this today. She said, "Hi, my name is Beth. I'm from KW Realty, Success Realty. And my friend Don Hinkle could not get out of Ottawa due to a snowstorm she had. So she rented a car because I told her that she had to do that. But I was really kind of joking. Anyway, Dawn did. She drove over 17 hours to get here. And she said, give her a huge shout out. So, Dawn, come on up stage. No. Yeah. So I heard that there was one gentleman from Spain that took him 26 hours to get here.
Yeah, my friend Leo, 26 hours to get here and 3 layovers, so.
Y'all better be good.
Yes, you should really think of something to say.
Man, don't you love the real estate industry? Yeah, no. So you're getting out? You don't love it? No, seriously. Got to be the greatest industry in the world, right? Not only the freedom and the flexibility, the opportunity that we have as professionals, but on the flip side, helping people buy and sell the most important asset in their life. What a great industry. What a great industry. Well, this is our vision speech. Thank you for joining us. This is where we go through a slide every 10 seconds. You don't remember any of it, and you can't understand most of it. Oh, I was just speaking for us. So, by the way, we will absolutely download all of this to you, so all of you can go back through this. As we talk about, we call it the visual speech only because in order to understand where possibly things are going and what we need to do to be prepared for that, we have to look backwards and try to understand what just happened. So that's what we're going to do this morning, basically speed dating through this. So let's dive in.
Yeah, we got some fun stuff to share.
Yeah, hold up that manual. So you see these manuals they have, they're cheaters. They've got cheat notes. We're going to cover that in an hour and a half. So here we go. Right? See if I know how to work this thing. It's been a while.
It'll all come back to you.
There we go. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to go through the U.S. numbers, the numbers that drive the U.S. Real estate industry. Then we're going to jump over and look at Canada. Then we're going to jump into looking at the numbers that drive the U.S. economy and then the Canadian economy. Then we're going to take a step. We're going to look at the industry. And then we're going to end up looking at going through NAR's report with you on what's happening with consumers. Sound good? That's what we're going to do. So let's start off real quickly with home sales. This isn't anything new to you, and that is, 2021 was the greatest sales number in the history of the real estate industry.
Yes.
Right? You should have had a really good year. But understand what's fascinating is that some people can have their best years in a down market, and some people have their best years in the best markets. So don't worry too much about what the market is doing in the end. Focus on your main activities of finding men and women who want to do business with you. If you can do that, the market will not totally drive your career. Do you understand that? Take that from a guy that's been doing this for 44 years. Okay?
Can we just acknowledge, too, that it was like 2 different experiences. This is the second most sales ever on record. So it's like an incredible opportunity. But we also know that people worked harder than ever to make that happen.
Yeah, so here's what we want you to look at. What you want to look at is the light blue, and notice that in that 5-year period, total sales were 28.2 million. And these are in numbers, right? Now I want you to look at, starting in 2018, if in fact we hit what is projected, which is 5.9 million in units, remember you have to double that for sides. Everybody clear on that? Yeah. So, by the way, if we hit that number, we're literally going to match what was the greatest time period in American real estate history. This year will be the bookend on that.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, so what does that mean? Uh-oh.
We don't know what it means,
Okay.
right?
Well, we know what happened the last time.
We know that the fundamentals are different than they were during the last run-up.
Well, let's talk about that in just a second, but that's
Yeah.
exactly right. The fundamentals are different. So look at this one. So look at home prices. And that is, if you go back and track the real estate industry, the number you want to think, in the US, you want to think is about 4%. So that yellow line is the long-term 4% average, okay? And I want you to notice that starting in literally 01, 02, we crossed it. And from 01 all the way to 2008, we were above the 4% line, okay? Then I want you to come over, and then of course you see what happened. And then let's come on over to today. So if we stayed on that trend line, we would be at $343,000 for the median price, right?
It's a big number.
Yeah.
It is a big number.
Well, and we have to put that in perspective, because I will tell you, for 44 years, every year always seemed, except for the Great Recession, always seemed like a great number too. It always seemed bigger than it should be.
Yeah.
So
you look up and you say, how can that be? 378,000.
well, we're going to put it in perspective, and,
Yeah.
and it's not as. I'm with you 100%. But when you look at the trend line, all of a sudden you get a dose of reality, and you go, well, hang on a second. We just now hit the trend line in 2021. I know it's weird, right? Because I'm with you.
For like 4 years, we had a second trend line. We thought that the bite that was taken out of the market, the equity in the Great Recession, we weren't sure we would ever get it back.
Yeah, we're about 5% above that at the end of last year, Gary. And if we get the projection we're looking at next year, which is about a 9% increase, it would take about 7 years, give or take, at like 2 to 3% appreciation per year, so much lower appreciation to get back down on that trend line. So that's something we're going to be tracking over the next couple of years to see what happens.
And you had the same issue back in 05 and 06 and 07. So we'll talk about it in just a second, right? So let's look at the annual appreciation in buckets, because I think this also gives you a real insight. And remember, one of the things that you and I get paid to do is to bring perspective to home buyers and home sellers. So the reason we want to go through this with you is, of all the people in the world who should understand this, I think you're it, right? So you'll be sent all this, and you're going to pick and choose which slides you want to go over with the men and women that you do business with, okay? So notice, let's just go back real quick and look. And you notice that from 1990 up until 2000, the average appreciation during that period was right on the trend line, guys. And then we jump over, and you notice the second phase from 01 to 05, well, we pop up and we're double that, right? Now, I'm going to go back just a second. Oh, hold it. Let's finish this and I'll go back. Then 06 through 11, right? We go all the way back. Then in 12 to 19, we're above the trend line again. The last 2 years have been the most remarkable appreciation period ever since they started tracking it. Never seen anything like this, right, Ruben?
No, never before. And when you look at this last year, I think we're going to talk about a lot later is inflation. And we got to remember, like, housing's part of that, right? So that 17% has that inflation baked into it, just like a lot of other prices we do right now. So, we're seeing this appreciation rate. When you look backwards over that time period, we were sitting at 2% basically for, we look at that 12 to 19. Now we're looking at, we'll see last year we saw like 7% inflation. So as that number comes down, we should expect home prices to slow down as well. They're tied together.
And I apologize. This is Ruben, who's our head economist for KW, by the way. You can tell my low sociability, high aggression always comes out, and I forget to do the right thing. Jason Abrams, head of industry. Jay Pepizan, head of publishing. These guys are awesome, by the way, and they work tirelessly on your behalf every day. They're just awesome. So I want to go back and look at something just to put all this in perspective. I want you to go back. I'm going to go back one more. Yep. So let's just kind of look at the trend line. So the trend line says that we started right above the 4% in 01. Can everyone see that? And by the way, we got back to the trend line in 08. So 01 to 08. You got that in your head? 01 to 08. Now look at what was happening. In 01, notice you started going above that, right? Right? In 08, what's really interesting is you started going back down, but you didn't get back to the trend line into 08. And you see what it took to get you there. Interesting, right? All right, let's go back and look at one other thing then. Let's look at when we got above it. So we got above it in 2021. And here we go. So what's fascinating is let's have this debate. We could go another year, we could go another 3 or 4 years above the trend line. You could actually do that, but at some point, something's going to happen.
At some point, homes become unaffordable. And either what happened last time is we started jiggering with the way we financed them, and that didn't turn out well, or it naturally cools off because buyers just say, I won't pay that price.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Something always happens. Everything that goes up comes down at some point. The question is, how fast does it come down and what does it feel like?
Well, we have the forces, and we're going to talk about this, we have the forces of employment, we have the forces of GDP, how the economy's doing, we have the forces of mortgage rates, we have this variety of things going on, the cost of money, that all play into this picture, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the weird thing, we're going to look in a second at Canada. Canada defies everything that you just said.
Oh, yeah.
Well, do you cheer about that? Now, by the way, Canadians are awesome, so absolutely. But when we look at their economy, they defy this idea of a bubble.
Right. They've been riding above their trend line for a long time.
Yeah, they defy all assumptions around what goes up must come down. In Canada, what goes up will be higher tomorrow.
Yeah. And Gary, I think you just hit the word that's kind of on everybody's mind, right? Bubble. So we should be having that conversation right now. Like the last 2 years, when you see appreciation happen this fast and this pace of home sales, it exposes a lot of people to the potential that if home prices did go down this year, for some reason, something happens, they're all exposed to being potentially in negative equity situations. So we're looking at a few things as red flags. So one of the things we're tracking, what are median, basically what is lending doing? So we know credit scores are still high across the board for the most part for what's happening with mortgages. Another interesting thing we're looking at right now is what are vacant homes doing? Because back in 05, 06, one thing we saw was all these owned vacant homes. So people were buying houses, letting them sit on the market. We're not talking about improvements to flip them, just speculation, and we can measure that. It was at like 3%.
They were flipping them without really, they just were holding them and flipping them.
That's exactly right. Right now that number is sitting at a third of what that was at the peak. So we're still looking very healthy in terms of we're not seeing signs of that speculation. So right now the fundamentals, essentially what I'm saying, we don't look like we're too concerned about being in a speculative bubble right now, but the risk is high because that price appreciation exposes us. If something bad happens, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, so there's always two conversations, and that is about what's going to happen this year. 99% of the men and women in this room only care about this year. Admit it. If we go, you're going to be fine, everybody goes, party! We're good. I read a report from Zillow who said all bets are off. They think the prices are going to jump 22%, and it's going to, they're going to jump 22%, they said.
It's interesting because when you
Now, they're the only ones who said that. Everybody else has said more in a line of anywhere from 5% to 9%.
Right.
So let's dot the bubble conversation, because I look at this, and the 80s aren't here, but that was a little more volatile. The 90s, tell us about it, because it looks really boring to me. And then things got fun and crazy. Is it going to get crazy again?
You know, all I can tell you is that we made money every year.
Yep.
As individual real estate agents, as brokerage owners, Keller Williams, all of us, if you literally got after it, you made money.
Yep.
I remember during the recession, you said you get to choose whether you participate or not. And so as we were looking at this and we say, okay, this was a record year, the question I have for you is, did it feel like that for you? Because if it didn't, we're probably a habit or two away from changing that and loving it.
Yeah. Well, okay, we'll talk about that in a second. So let's look at inventory. So here's the thing that really caused all of this, and that is historically low inventory. And again, it's fascinating. You can look at when did we go into the Great Recession? Well, you can see it. You were actually there in 05. It started at the last quarter of 05. Economically, they say that it actually occurred in 07, 08. But in the real estate industry, if you were around then, you actually saw it happen in the last quarter of 05. I remember where I was sitting when we went through the data, and I went, oh no.
It was somebody said, a listing agent, we're noticing that our showings are down precipitously in 05, and that was the first signal.
Well, you crossed the line from being in a buyer's market to being in a seller's market.
Yeah.
And you saw the jump, and you went, okay, something's happening. And then there we went. And you notice again, you were in a seller's market during that period for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you go. The thing that we understand, I'm going to go back and just make one more comment real quick, okay? Because what happens is you're talking to a buyer or seller, and they say, should I sell, should I buy? Right? And people are usually driven, if not majority driven, by a change in their life or another decision they want to make, right? I want a bigger house, I want a smaller house, blah, blah, blah. There's also the economic consideration. And what I understand, and you can look at this with great certainty and tell someone that if you plan to live in the home at least 10 years, it doesn't matter when you buy it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now we're going to look later at the very end of our presentation, we're going to look at how long consumers said they anticipated staying in their home. And of course the crazy is that you even have any percents that go less than a year. And you go, oh no, that's risky.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we look back at inventory, and the thing about inventory, if we go look at this on a month-to-month basis, you'll notice what happened. And in March of 2020, right, COVID hits, and you immediately see the inventory going up. And then what happens 90 days later in real estate is it literally flipped. Everybody was getting ready for the big fall, and for about 90 days, and you can see this, we'll see this when we look at the employment numbers. You'll see how many people lost their jobs during that 90-day period. It's like 21 million jobs were lost in 90 days, which is, again, unheard of. And this is what happened to real estate. But real estate was still selling. In other words, in the worst employment period, 90 days ever, we still only had a 4.6 month supply of real estate. I mean, you would have thought it would have been, we have 100 months. We
Yeah.
have 200 months. It didn't happen. And again, as business people and as advisors and consultants to people that buy and sell real estate, this kind of perspective is really important, okay? So you look over and you go all the way to the end over here, and you realize in December of 2020, we got down to 1.9 months of inventory in the United States. Again, unheard of, never seen before. Flip over to the purple in January, you see that in 2021, it was 1.9 again, it was 2. It got up as high as 2.6 in August, but here we are again. And in December, we were the lowest months of inventory in the history of the real estate industry ever recorded. Now, and people go, it's so hard. But you do realize in order to sell 6.1 million homes, you had to have 6.1 million homes to sell. So it's not that you didn't have the inventory. What you had was instant sales.
Yeah, the velocity of sales was unheard of.
Yeah, I think the thing that I think caught myself and a lot of us off guard about the pandemic was that it shifted what people needed from their houses. And if you look back through times in history when that happens, home sales surge because all of a sudden there's like a new demand that gets generated because people's requirements for their house shift, and people who may have been settled and weren't going to turn over for 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden it's like all coming on the market at once, and demand just went through the roof.
Yeah, so are you in a bubble? No, probably not. Not today, you're not. Are you beginning to blow a bubble? Yeah, probably so. You know, well, Gary, how long will the bubble, if we're blowing it, how long will it last before it pops?
Yeah, how long?
Yeah, we have no idea. You have no idea. And because if we go to war, right, in the Ukraine, that bubble could burst pretty quickly, right, depending upon that. The flip side is the government absolutely tries to govern the economy, right, by raising interest rates. And as well-intentioned as the federal government in the United States is, never underestimate the gifts they'll give you by making the wrong decision. And that's not a criticism. It's in the moment, it looks like that's the right thing to do, and then later they look up and they either overstimulated the economy or they ground it to a halt. In other words, it's hard to get it exactly right. And that's literally the way, they call it economic cycles. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And what people don't really understand is that when it goes up, the government takes actions to slow it down and causes it. And usually they do a little too much and it goes down too far. And then, of course, they didn't try to stimulate it, and then they stimulate it, and a lot of the times they overstimulate it, and off we go. Right now, we're in overstimulation. There's no question about that. When you were looking at the abyss, the government went out and said, we have to spend money, we have to give people money, we have to do all of these things to make sure that we don't go into a depression. Well, they accomplished that. You could criticize, whether it's Republican or Democrat, you could criticize all you want, but in the end, the right decisions were made to keep us out of a depression. But this is what you get when you overstimulate, right? You get people that have more money in savings than they ever had before, not because they worked, but because the government gave them the money. You have businesses apply for PPE thinking that they were going into the abyss, and then they didn't, and they looked up, and they had more cash than they'd ever had. So now we know what people do when they have more cash, Bill, than they've ever had before. Now we know. They don't work. They call in sick a lot. They change jobs. Yeah, that's right. And I think this is uncharted territory. All of this is new. There's no, since recorded history, going back to 1776, they haven't said this before.
Yeah, it's the lowest inventory on record, what we saw.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's look at mortgage rates. Don't panic. We spend more time on this and we go really fast on the other stuff. because we're only 4 pages in. Oh, no. Yep. That's what our granddaughter says. Oh, no. Yep. So mortgage rates. Look, I always point this out because I have a fond memory. I got in the real estate industry in 1979. Can you see what interest rates did in 1980, 1979, 1980, 1981, 82? Can you believe that? You're over here worried about 4% mortgages. I was dealing with 17%. And by the way, sold 6 houses my first month. You can sell real estate. People will still buy and sell, you guys. But it's pretty awesome. But look at what's going on. You're living in unprecedented times. If you look at that trend line of approximately 6% going back to 1990 for the average mortgage, look, if you got in the real estate industry, pick it. 02, 03, you really have never experienced high mortgage rates. You've been living in the cheapest era of money. You're pretty smart. Good time. For those of us who've been in this a long time, we look up and we go, oh my gosh, this is unreal, right? Yeah. People always ask the question, do you think it'll go back up? And the answer is?
It is.
No, all
Not
the way
that
back
high.
up to 17%. No, because the government, for all its pros and cons, one of the things it gets right is once they see how something works and they understand it, they draw up hypothesis around it, and then they already have a plan to make sure that that never happens again. Okay? And I have 100% confidence in that. So what do we think mortgage rates are going to do? Well, we ended the year, they kept saying, we're going to get these rate hikes, Ruben, and we're going to see mortgage rates probably go as high as 4% in 2022. But where are we right now?
Yeah, so on Thursday, they were already at 3.9. So we're kind of like aiming at a moving target right now a little bit. I think we're going to see a lot of volatility recently. So they were at 3.9 on Thursday, but then Treasury rates dropped like 25 basis points on Friday. So on next Thursday, I expect to see rates come back down a little bit. So I think we're going to be bouncing around a lot. We're probably trending up toward 4.5% next year if they keep trending up. But if something bad happens, we bring rates back down again. It's going to be hard to predict next year, honestly.
Yeah. They're going to look at one thing. They're going to look at, are we still overstimulating the economy? That's all they're going to look at. If, in fact, it looks like things are calming down, they're not going to touch it. If they think that inflation is rampant, they're going to keep raising that rate till they stop it.
Yeah, everything happening in the U.S. right now says that rate should trend up. Stuff happening in other parts of the world right now is pushing treasuries back down a little bit. So that's the thing we have to watch.
Yeah. So here, by the way, all of that is mumbo jumbo because it all translates into this slide, and that is, what can I afford? And remember, the formula for buying a home is the price of the house plus the price of the cost of money if you're not paying cash. So when we look at affordability, again, I always point out to people, when I got in the real estate industry, it went from 26 to 36% of your income to make your mortgage payment. And look where we exist today. It rose a little bit to 16, but it's only 16% right?
Which is wild, because you saw the median sales price at projecting $378,000.
It's still only 16%.
That's the story. They're buying the payment, not the price.
And it's still only 16%. I mean, I could say that 100 times, and it's still only 16%. And that's when all of a sudden you get perspective and you go, so is everything overpriced? It is for the first-time buyer. That's we'll look at that in a little while. For the first-time buyer, it absolutely is, and that's a challenge.
It takes 24% of the first-time homebuyer's income to buy their house. So it's always higher, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But it's a big jump, and we also know that they are carrying a lot of school debt, which complicates it and is pushing their purchase back.
I think that's 100% right. So the long-term average is about 20%. We could clearly get back to that. Make no mistake about it. You keep these kind of price jumps, And we'll be here a year from now, and we'll be talking about it being 18% or 19% if we keep seeing that. Historically, how does that rank? Below average. It still ranks well. So, again, I believe these are the kind of charts, depending upon who you're working with, that you simply pull out, and you can show them time frames of this to get them to understand perspective. Okay? All right, so let's look at Canada real quick. We'll go through the same numbers real quick because Canada, in so many ways, is a mirror image of the United States. So again, they had their greatest year, 667,000 home sales, and they anticipate it being at 611,000 this year. You can see the steady climb, though. It's fascinating. We don't have in Canada what you had in America, these deep, deep dives, which is really fascinating. This is the one that defies all logic.
Oh, stop it already with this.
So the 4.4 was what was the average through historically. So if you see it being run out like that, you go, boy, they left that average far behind. And it just kept going and going and going.
When do we change the trend line? Because this looks outrageous at this point. Stop it, Canada.
Yeah, no, we're not going to change it. Because it puts it all in perspective. The 4.4 is more of a hope, is more of a target number, just like in America. And that is, if you have GDP of 2 to 3%, unemployment below 5%, right? You have inflation in check at about 2%, then you would see home price appreciation in that 4 to 4.5%. Does that make sense? Those are all the numbers that we want to understand. So when you're reading the news, you literally just go, we'll talk about it in a second. I'll walk you through it and show you. And this is what you look for. And if all the dials show up the way they should, you're good to go. And if they start changing, then you need to pay attention to that. So there you go. They left that a long time ago, right? Now this is in American dollars, U.S. dollars. Remember, there's a $1.20 to a Canadian dollar right now, conversion rate approximately. So when we see that high number, that's really 581 or 549,000 in U.S. dollars. But that still is about $200,000 more than what it would cost in America on average, right?
The thing that's interesting to that one for me, Gary, is we know Canada's passed some foreign buyer taxes over the last 5 years. This sort of talks about that in a way, right? Because if I'm buying in U.S. dollars, the Canadian markets look very different to me than it has if I'm paying in Canadian dollars. If I'm earning my living in Canada versus competing with somebody who's coming from outside of Canada, these prices are very different than the other ones. So it helps explain the outside demand that's been like very prevalent in a lot of Canadian cities.
Yeah. And this is just an interesting sidebar, and that is 24% of the population in Canada resides in two areas, the Greater Toronto area and the Greater Vancouver area. There's nothing like that in the United States. It's highly concentrated. So when you include them in the price, the average price is $748,000 as of January 22nd. If you take those two areas out, then the average price is $588. And if you drop that down by what, 100,000 or so to go into U.S. dollars, then you have the average price is 480,000 or so versus 300 and where are we at now? 50. Yeah. Does that make sense? So it's not as crazy then as you think when you do the apples to apples if you take those two areas out.
What is interesting there is you saw them try to do more legislation to slow down the market. And
That's a great point.
It's had very little effect.
That's a great point. Canada, I think, again, they have the best banking system in the world, bar none. And they did everything in their power to slow things down, and it didn't work. They're scratching their head.
A lot of the demand was coming from foreign buyers because there was a way for them to get a visa by owning property there. And so we saw the legislation hit in those big market areas, but then people just started buying properties elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because the rules were set on a local level, not a national.
Yeah,
That's
and we saw that legislation have an immediate impact, but Canada saw the same thing the U.S. did when the pandemic happened, which is like people's needs changed, and all of a sudden here it comes. Like demand shot through the roof there as well, as people were just like, I need a different house now.
Yep. So looking at inventory, they measure it differently. In the U.S., we say you have a buyer's market if you're less than 6 months inventory. You have a seller market if it's more than 6 months inventory. In Canada, they look at it differently, and that is they look at how many homes would sell that came in the same month they came on the market. And in this case, if 100 homes came on the market, 78 would sell in that month, which makes it the greatest sellers market in the history of Canada, right? Mortgage rates, they tend to be slightly higher again in Canada versus the United States, but they're coming down as well. Affordability actually got better, right? That's all this means is that it used to take 53% of your income to buy a house, and now it takes 52, so affordability got better. Now remember, in Canada, they count all cost to own a home. They throw everything in there. In the US, they look at affordability only around mortgage. So in the US, 16, 17%.
That's principal and interest only.
It's principal and interest only. In Canada, they don't look at it like that.
You got insurance, taxes, sure, and utilities.
The interesting thing is if you look at condos, and that is condos got more affordable by almost 5%. So they're literally only 0.9% or 1% above the historical average for affordability for condos, which is crazy.
It is a big number, though, 50% of the pre-tax income plus.
Well,
and you
I can assure you in Texas, once you pay your mortgage and then you start paying your taxes, you'll get up there.
Some of those markets are highly sensitive to the price of oil as well, meaning that they could be getting ready to see another burst as you see the price per barrel go up. It crosses, pick it, $120, $130.
One of the interesting things that happened in COVID, you guys, is that people that had money had more money than they'd ever had before, and what did they do with it more than anything else? They bought dirt. And they bought real estate. Isn't that weird? I know some bought cowboy hats, right? But more than anything else, they bought real estate. When people got money, when they had excess money, they bought real estate. That's crazy. It's also cool. You're in real estate. All right, so let's look at this. So this is, you cover slides like this, guys, with a heavy heart, right? This has been one of the most emotional, one of the most challenging, one of the most frightening periods in American history, and that is a real, honest-to-gosh pandemic happened. And here are the numbers as they sit, and that is we have 76 million cumulative U.S. cases, deaths 906. So the mortality rate's about 1.2. If you got COVID, you have about 1.2% chance of dying from it. Our good friend Dave Jinks happened to be one of those individuals. Yeah, not good. And then you look at worldwide cases. And again, America has less of the population that has more cases than anybody. And that's just who we are, right? So we lead the field in every category. Yep. So if you look at these numbers like 209, 164, 806, those are the new cases. And notice that those actually coincide with COVID, with Delta, and then with Omicron. Okay? So that's it. And you can also see, which is, we had this big debate about were we even going to do family reunion.
Yes.
And we made a bet. And the bet we made is that line would come down. And
I looked this morning, and it's actually like at 106,000 7-day average. So
there you are, right? There you are. And we made the bet, and we were right. So let's kind of talk about this, because what's on everyone's mind and everyone's heart is When will this become an endemic? Which is just, there's only been one virus that was ever cured.
Smallpox.
It's the only one. No other has ever been eradicated, okay? So we understand that. So what we understand is that we learn to live with these viruses that show up. The hope and expectation is that COVID will be no different, and they're seeing signs that, right? Because, and this is not, I'm not making political statements. I'm just telling you what they think, and that is their belief is that they can get enough people to either get it and live, or get vaccinated. That essentially it has the virus has no place to hide. It has no place to live
and evolve, right? And when we have a critical mass of immunity, we have fewer of these new strains that show up because there's no place for them to incubate.
Yeah, that's it. So the key characteristics that define an endemic are stability and predictability. And what this means is that we now understand and that it's not growing, and we can predict what's going to happen. And if they can do that, they're good. Right, so new variants are expected. They are, by the way. And the severity of those will vary from one season to the next. So you'll never be out of the woods with COVID. You won't. But there's a pretty good shot that we'll live with it, right? So their expected severity of distress more lower because of widespread existing immunity, like I said, and prior infections, better treatment regimens for severe disease, and number 3 would be the health system adapts to handling it better, right? They're now aware of what they need to do. Man, God bless health workers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, I know people that are in the health industry, and it's, we are over here going, oh my God, I'm stressed out because I'm having the greatest career of my life in 1 year. And that's not happening in the medical community. The medical community is literally having their worst time in their lifetime. And they stress out because they want people to live. They want people to get well. And they struggle.
We see the critical, like when it goes unpredictable and unstable, it hits our emergency workers in hospitals, actually in our daycare and schools the hardest. When that stabilizes, I think we'll be on the other side.
I will say this, that throughout all of this, the amount of heart that so many showed, but especially this ecosystem, the answers for all the prayer calls and all the care calls that were made, thank you all for everything that you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and and again, this isn't a political statement. This is just an explanation of the debate. But the debate that goes on is your social liberties, your personal liberties. Your personal liberties versus your social responsibility, and everyone has to decide that for themselves. But that, when you read all the blogs and all the mud throwing and all the blah blah blah, it really just comes down to those issues, right? All right, let's look at the U.S. economy. So here are the 5 numbers you want to look at. You always want to look at GDP, which is gross domestic product, which is the goods and services that we're selling in any period. Number 2, you want to look at unemployment. Number 3, you want to look at how are wages doing? Are wages up or down? What is the income that people are earning? And the last one is inflation. So you're constantly just looking at these numbers to try to understand, is the economy in a good place? Is it in a bad place? Okay? So if we look at the GDP, we're in a really good place, right? The number for GDP, what they would love to see is anything above 2. So if you get to 2.5 or 3, boy, the economy feels really solid. You get to 4, it feels really, really, really good. You get to 5.7 and man, things are moving like crazy, which, oh, by the way, when you have a shortage of supplies or a shortage of labor, what do you get when GDP is that rampant?
Well, that's the thing. It's booming, but I can't get anything. I have to wait like
Yeah, well-
60 days for my tonal.
Yeah. So what you get, by the way, is inflation.
Inflation.
Yeah, and what you're talking
you get
about,
is-
Jason, it's an important point because we saw a spending shift. You're talking about getting stuff. During the pandemic, people stopped buying services and they started buying stuff. And so much demand shifted, plus supply chain issues. That's why stuff is getting expensive.
Yeah.
So as we shift back toward services and people, it'll actually take some of the pressure off of stuff, and that's one of the things that's going to help us deal with inflation. So we go for on top of Federal Reserve policy.
I hope a freighter in the Suez Canal never matters again. The fact that we cared about that for like 20 days tells you everything. Right?
There's some freighter out there full of bootstraps that I'm waiting to arrive. It's been like 9 months.
Yeah. But again, sorry. Again, it's unprecedented. It's unprecedented in your professional lifetime. For most of you, you've never seen anything like this, right?
We're expecting it to be in that 4% range this year. So last year,
At the least.
last year might have been a rebound, right? We came from a dark place, we went up really fast, but the 4% that we expect this year is just going to feel like a really robust economy.
Well, what happened is people that have money are making more money than ever. So it makes all this cattywomp because, it went down, but you'll see that it didn't go down equally. The people didn't suffer equally during the pandemic.
Nope.
When we look at unemployment, you can see what happened right before the pandemic. We were what would be considered almost 100% employment at 3.7. Wham! In 2020, look at that number. That number is on the border, right, of what happened during the Great Recession. And that's what everybody thought was going to happen. And it happened fast. It happened like in 90 days. In 90 days, you lost 21 million jobs. In 90 days. It was unbelievable. Right? It wasn't slow and then it was like a cliff.
The number's in a good place, but what we're feeling too is there's still about 2 million people that were in the workforce when we started that haven't made it back yet.
Well, that's a big point, Jay. There are, like he said, there are about 2 million approximate individuals that we believe could be in the workforce who have decided today to not be there. And if you add, Ruben, if I add 2 million people back into the labor force and they don't find a job, what does unemployment go to?
Unemployment goes down. Like we're seeing employment hit what feels like
No,
really
if
high.
2 million people go into the workforce and then can't find a job.
Oh, yes, unemployment will go up. If they all came in tomorrow, it would take a little while for us to work through.
Yeah, so
that
you could see
backlog, right?
unemployment jump right back up to 6 or 6.5%,
Yeah.
just like that, if they all showed up, which they're not going to do.
Yeah, and we know those people came off for a lot of different reasons. And we're talking particularly, the number Jay threw out is about prime working age people. So we're talking between 18 and 54. So these people aren't probably retiring. So we had some people that saved up money, maybe took time off and are going to come back in as they burn through their savings. But we also have people that had to become caretakers. Like there were a lot of people who had children who needed caretaking during the day that like daycares weren't an option anymore. School wasn't in regularly. That takes a toll, having to care for older relatives, like that took people out of the labor force. So as things normalize, we'll see parts of that start to come back, but parts of it maybe won't.
But there's plenty of open jobs waiting for them if they decide to come back.
They're all going to become realtors. Who are we kidding?
Yeah, they're just,
Well, we're going to talk
They're
about
going
that.
through
We're gonna-
K-score right
we're gonna
now.
look at-
Right.
We're going to look at all those numbers in just a second, because that's an interesting observation. But yeah, so check the dial. You just came off of the greatest GDP year in the last 30-something years, and oh, by the way, you're at the second lowest, or I guess the second lowest employment number since going all the way back to, there you go, prior to the pandemic to even starting, right? So you're kind of there. And by the way, real wages in 2020, this is after inflation, overall jumped by 4.3, and that's a big jump, guys. That's a really big jump. Now it got a little corrected in 2021, but not a whole lot. Then if you look at income by sector, which is really interesting to you and I, because we sell homes to people that can afford them. So you look at, and we showed this last year, and that is that the leisure and hospitality got hit the worst, okay? And they make the least amount of money. So they had the most unemployment. They've also had the most now gains because they got hit the hardest.
Yeah.
So this dollar amount here, this $502.
That's a weekly wages.
That's a weekly wages in that vertical.
Correct.
And so here's what happened. So here's the, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but here's what happened. What's happened is that those individuals that got paid that, all of a sudden looked up and said, you know what? Instead of being in the food service business in the Hyatt Hotel, I'm going to go into manufacturing, right? And I'm going to get paid a lot more money, which is why at the Hyatt, you can't get room service.
I can't get room service.
Right. Well, and that's just an interesting example of an entire group of individuals looking up and going, hold it. They need people. They're willing to train me and hire me to go do this, and they're off and running. So we've got a labor shortage, you guys, in what you would call this service industry, but it's particularly leisure and hospitality.
And that's why you see the wage growth there, is because employers are like, we'll give you more if you'll come back to this job. And that's how it balances out in sectors, right? If people really want to move somewhere else, how do you attract those workers?
Well, how do you keep the prices the same? I can't get the room service, I can't get the cleaning, but it costs more. How does that...
Everything, well, we'll look at it in a second. We'll look at inflation. Everything costs more right now. That's the way it is. Right? So you look at inflation and you realize that 7% is a scary number. Okay? It's a scary number. Now, core would be, which excludes, by the way, energy, and it excludes food, right? Gas and food, if you will. 5.5, a little more palatable. They anticipate, which, by the way, is why when you go out there, you see everything has gone up. Everything has gone up, by the way. Everything has gone up. Yeah, forecast is it'll come back down around 2% at some point. By the way, the reason why they say that is because if it naturally doesn't do it, they're going to dang well make it do it. They will. And they literally call stop the economy. And because, by the way, the number one threat to democracy is inflation. Because inflation favors the rich and harms the poor. So it's one of the most polarizing events in an economy is when rampant inflation occurs and everything costs more, okay? So it's very polarizing. So, and we understand that. So as a democracy, our federal government looks up and both sides of the aisle, both parties agree you cannot have rampant inflation. In that they will agree, by the way. All right, so this was really interesting. So focus your eyes a second and just look at this chart and I'll explain it to you. So what Ruben did was he and his team took 4 different categories of car, gas, house, and wages. And they went to 2021 and they say, what do they cost today? So a car, on average, costs $46,000 today. In 1989, it cost $15,350. Now, if you adjust for inflation, that car should have cost $35,000.
Yeah, in today's dollars, $35,636.
In today's dollars, which means it's 30% above what you would have expected it to be, right?
Right. The real price of a car in terms of like what you're trading for and purchasing power.
The real price has gone up 30%. So you look at gas and you realize gas at $3.51 in '89, it was 97 cents. Adjusted for inflation, $2.25, which means you have a real increase of 56%.
97 cents.
Yeah.
It was 10, so that's amazing to me.
It's interesting because one thing that I wish in retrospect I'd have put on here that I looked up afterwards, if you looked at computers in 1989, if you adjust those to current day's prices, a laptop, or not even a laptop, just a computer would have cost you about $17,000 in today's dollars. So the supercomputer you have in your phone is you've earned some purchasing power there, I would say.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now you can tell the entire world how you feel about the price of gas from your pocket. You would have been paying a lot in postage to do that in 1989.
Yeah, you look at wages they've increased in real dollars 13%. Now look at housing. Look at housing. So price, 2021, $346,900. The mortgage on that, $1,455, guys. Now we go back to 89. Price was $94,000. The payment was $825. But if you adjust it for inflation, in real dollars, look what happened.
Yeah.
The price of the home, 58% increase in real dollars, today's dollars. But the mortgage, the price that you pay to live in the house, down 24%. See, adjusted for inflation, it should be $1,900 a month. But it's actually only $1,455. So Jason, when you're talking about things are so expensive, it costs so much money, and then you do an analysis, you realize, yeah, the car does, yeah, the gas does, yeah, the house does, yeah, the wages are, but my actual cost to live in my house isn't.
That's it.
Is that crazy? Bet you didn't know that, did you, till you showed up today? That's a slide you want to keep. You want to show to people in real dollars what's happening, right? Because people will look up and they'll naturally have this reaction of, my gosh, this is so expensive. And then when you show them, you say, yeah, but there's two things that make up affordability. And that's the cost of the product and the financing that it takes to buy it, to have it.
Yeah, I can't imagine any buyer consult that doesn't have that slide in it moving forward.
Yep. So let's look at Canada. By the way, it mirrors the United States. Again, the best, they had the worst GDP on record and followed by the third best recorded GDP. Same with unemployment, but in Canada, they measure it differently. So these numbers, again, look inflated because they also include all other workers in that.
The gross numbers, I think I said we were 2 million short of where we came into it. They're actually a net 300,000 more people employed.
Yeah.
So they've actually come back farther, even though it doesn't look like it.
Yep. And inflation, they have the same challenges that we do in America. So let's look at the U.S. event. So these 9 slides are the money slides, right? So let's talk about this. So let's talk about sides per agent. And I think this is fascinating, right? Because all this is taking the available number of transactions, in this case 6.1 million that were done last year, and you divide it into the number of agents that had a license for some period of time during that year. And you see that number is 7.8 transactions per agent in the business. Is that a good number or a bad number?
Jay?
It's kind of average, right? I mean,
my response to it is tubula boobala, I just don't care.
who wants to be average anyway?
Well, I have people come in all the time and say, what does the average agent make? And I go, why, are you average?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an important point because I look at this and I go, so if I take 7.8 transactions and I multiply that times, pick a commission, $8,000, $9,000 or whatever on a gross commission, what's that number? Well, that's over $60,000. So you're telling me that the average real estate agent last year grossed between $60,000 to $70,000. Oh my God, that's horrible. You poor people. No, it's not horrible. I mean, that actually works, right? And you can see the breakdown of where it's been over history. But by the way, we've been as low as 6.9. When I got in the industry, I watched it ride all the way down to around 7. I never thought anything about it, right? Yes.
This also tells the story of agent count, meaning this is highly affected by the number of people that have real estate licenses. And when you look up and you realize that there's more and more people taking online courses, they estimate that you have 500,000 to 600,000 people in pre-licensing school today.
Yeah. Here would be my just takeaway to anybody that cares, and that is, what it means to me is that it doesn't mean if you come in and get a license, you're going to do 7.8. What it means, that's the average. So what that means is, if you come in and don't do anything, you'll go broke. Because there's an agent sitting next to you that's going to do 15 or 16 deals. And they're going to take all of yours. And it means that if you don't learn how to go find buyers and sellers who are willing to do business with you, to apply your profession in the service of their needs, you will go broke. And we see it happen all the time.
The other key point here is with more realtors than ever, call it 1.6 million, the odds that your data bank, pieces of it, reside in another agent's data bank have never been higher, which means you have to be all the more purposeful around connecting with your people.
Yeah, so I find it interesting, and what it says is, you're not at the bottom. In 2008, it was worse than this. And how do we do financially?
If you got after it, people had career years in 2008. You can have a career year in any of these years. This just shows you how competitive it is.
We'll leave it at that. Distressed sales are a non-issue right now in American real estate, thank God. Right? Underwater homes, again, anything below, the historical average is 6% of all homes, right? They owe more than the value of the home. And today we sit at 2.1%, which again, after what we've gone through, this is why things are different, because we do not have a lot of people, comparatively speaking, that are underwater. Right? Now, don't get confused by this slide. All this slide is here to show you is that your number one way to figure out if interest rates are going to be up or down, mortgage rates, is to look at Treasury notes. Okay? And we use Treasury notes simply because when people want to go place money where they think it's safe, they go to a Treasury note. So the more money that flows into Treasury notes, the more demand there is, the price goes down. What happens then is a mortgage, which is perceived to be riskier, they'll factor in a risk factor and they'll charge you that amount more for a 30-year mortgage. So that's why they don't line up, because it's the Treasury note is considered literally risk-free because it's the debt of the federal government, and they can print more money if they need to in order to pay the debt. So they have money. And then you have the added risk factor, and that's the mortgage rate. So all you have to do is just watch that to see what's going to happen. Okay? So that's the number you look at. We look at credit conditions. The red is when they tightened. And you can see what was going on. And then you see the loosening. And the loosening is to get people, right? So the tightening is to have less people apply, be able to get approved for a mortgage. And loosening is when they want more people. And the way they loosen it, and you can just watch this, just watch it, is they start lowering their credit scores. And number two, they start allowing people a less percent to qualify for. Okay? Less percent of their payment against their income. Mm-hmm. So they'll lower that barrier, right? And they'll lower the credit score. When you start seeing those things happen and you start hearing about it and all of that, start to worry. Because what's going on here is that, what was the numbers we were talking about? Right now you have 65.5% of Americans own their own home.
Right.
And the largest that has ever been is?
We saw this at the peak right before the Great Recession, and it got up to about 69% plus.
Okay, so let's stop there. So we saw it hovering around 69. Now, understand, there probably are not 69% of people that should economically own their home. I know that may be a new idea for you, but that around 64 to 66% is about where that should be. And when they start trying to force that number probably anywhere above like 67, be careful. Be careful, because what it means is they're starting to loosen their credit score requirements. They're starting to loosen the percent that you have to qualify for, right, as a percent of your mortgage versus your gross income. And when they do that, they're putting people in houses that if anything happens to the economy, they will not be able to afford it. Okay? By the way, in Canada, best banking system in the world, David, they require you to qualify for more than what your payment is.
Yeah, and at a higher interest rate. Their qualifying rate is a full percentage point higher. In
America, we try to get you in for the least. In Canada, they make you over-qualify, and you can't get a 30-year loan, you can get a 5-year ARM, right? Which is why in Canada, when we did on the Shift Tour, and we got to Canada, we had to tear out the chapter in foreclosures because the Canadian realtors looked at us and said, what's that?
Yeah. In the U.S. in 2008, 40% of all home sales were distressed sales.
Say that again to them. 40%
of all home sales in 2008 were distressed home sales. We go to Canada and they're like, what's an REO?
Yeah, in Canada it was 0. So in America, we love people to fail. I know, that's a little weird, isn't it? New home starts, okay. This is the money page. This is the page that explains everything. You've been waiting for an hour for this page, patiently. So here's the interesting thing. So in the run-up to 2007, we overbuilt by about 2.5 million homes, okay? Great Recession hits, and here we go, okay? Now we underbuilt during the Great Recession a little over 5.1 million homes. We underbuilt. So do the subtraction and you realize we're about 2.5 million homes that we don't have that we should have had. The historical average is 1,000. I'm sorry, 1 million. Right, 1 million starts a year. We are 2.5 million below that. And you look at this rate, just look at 2021 as an example. So you're 123,000 over. You do realize that it'll take you 18 years at that pace to get back to the trend line. 18 freaking years. So when you talk about a balloon, or right, and this bubble bursting, right? When you talk about what's going to happen, it all begins and ends right here.
And this is one of the key reasons that we started the new homes division. We didn't just like make it up on the Uber ride to the office one day. Like we looked at the dials and said, what are the things that are going to be driving the industry? You're really well served to go back and look at your market and see where you fall historically, locally, and figure out if that vertical makes sense for your business.
And oh, by the way, go invent new builders. Go find land, right? Buy dirt. Go find dirt. I mean, right now, as a realtor, go find dirt. As a market center, together, go find dirt. Go find people with land and show them what to build. You know better than anybody what they should build, right? Yes, you should do this. This is exactly what you should go do right now. I am mind melding with you. You are going to go. Somebody's got to do it. It's where the greatest opportunity in the real estate industry lies right now, more than anything else, is we have a lack of inventory. You want to solve the problem? Go find the inventory in the next few years and bring it to the market, okay? New home sales, the national average, historical average is 650,000, but it's mainly because it doesn't count custom homes and there's always a lag time. So, all right, student loan debt, it's another big issue, isn't it? Right? Look at the student debt and understand that the first-time home buyer is the person who has the student debt, which translates into anywhere from, they come out of college with a debt of about $20,000 to $25,000 on average, and the monthly payment on that is anywhere from $200 to $299 a month. So what we're seeing happening right now is we're seeing people waiting longer, right?
That's why it takes 24% of their income versus 16%. Like, they don't have as much disposable income to put into their house. They're waiting longer.
Yeah, this is called the Great Heist. And that is the cost of a college education in America has risen faster than literally any other service on the planet.
I thought that Jay made a fascinating point here, because you see this slowdown, but that might be because of COVID, that people are taking this like walk the earth and have adventures gap year.
Well, there's gap years, so maybe people are taking on less college debt, and I know a lot of people firsthand that are using the moratoriums on interest and payments to pay down their debt. And so they took some of the money they got from the government and put it straight onto their debt.
Yeah, that's a problem. And then number 9, the economic risk in 2022. And the two biggest ones are one that we're living in right now, and that's the Russian invasion of Ukraine, if that happens, right? And if it does, it's going to have a global impact pretty rapidly on energy markets, because there's a lot of oil in Russia. By the way, in Ukraine, a lot of grain. So you understand that if they disrupt the supply chain of gas in one hand, oil, if you will, in one hand, and on the other hand, grain, you could have a humanity crisis. You really could. It could be pretty staggering what could happen, by the way. So we're all watching that and hoping that doesn't happen. The Federal Reserve policy, right? The Fed's set to raise those rates, and they're going to keep raising them. You watch them. They're going to keep raising it so they can stop that inflation. And they're going to be trying to get it right, and they never get it right. And they don't get it right because they're stupid. They can't get it right because it's not an exact science. You're guessing. And when you're guessing and betting on human nature, you always get it wrong.
I think that Ruben mentioned it earlier. The crazy dance they're doing now is they have the global issue, like with Russia and Ukraine. That's why they actually dropped interest rates most recently, but they're looking at inflation here and they want to go up.
Yeah.
So they've like, well, which way are we going to go? Are we going to go back into trouble from a world market, or are we going to deal with inflation? So they're going to have to balance those two out.
Yeah, that's a conundrum. Yep. All right, so let's look at luxury and commercial real quick. So luxury. The only thing here to understand is that we have a steady march towards people getting richer, right? It's 2% of all Americans are millionaires, I believe is my calculation when I did the math on this, right? Yeah, there are a lot of people that can buy a lot of stuff, right? Allocation of financial investments. This is like checking the blood pressure or the pulse of the patient, right? We immediately go to see if anybody wants to own real estate. And as a financial investment, right, in 2021, 15%. And that's held steady the last couple of years. It's been as high as 19 and 20, but I think that this run-up in the stock market, this whole unprecedented, right, the venture capital world, the amount of startups that are occurring, they pulled from that, and they also pulled away from fixed income as well, right? So, bottom line is, people are investing in real estate, right? And we're going to look in a second on their view of that. Commercial real estate. So when you think about commercial real estate, you think of three things, right? And that is job growth, and then what are the vacancy rates, and what are the long-term delinquency rates. And I'm not going to, this gets extremely complicated, so I'm going to stay at a high level. What this shows you is that in March of 2020, we were still adding several 100,000 jobs a month. We get to the second quarter of 2020, and all of a sudden, in 3 months, we lose 21 million jobs. Okay? Now, guess what? Miracle of miracles, it flips, and in the last half of the year, we're adding we go back and add 3 million on average every 90 days, right?
That's right.
So there you go. And then by the way, it ends up normalizing back out. So we're still adding 500 to 600,000 jobs a month right now, Ruben, correct?
Yeah, that's right, which is amazing. That's
amazing.
incredible.
That's a massive number. If you were adding 250 or so thousand a month, that would feel like a kind of a normal economy. Right now, we're filling in gap after gap after gap after gap, and they predict that there's a great likelihood that'll continue this year at a large amount. Again, as long as a meteor doesn't hit the planet.
And you taught me this, Gary, that job growth usually is an indicator of commercial growth. When jobs are growing at a rapid rate, they're going to need space.
Yeah.
And so that's why we look at that number.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which has changed a little bit, right? And we see that on this graph with office vacancy, with remote work, that attachment to that job number is disconnected a little bit. And that industry, I think, is still trying to figure out what leasing is going to look like coming back from.
Yeah, so by the way, this is the most confusing graph you'll ever see in your life. Ruben invented it, which is why he has the big brain in the family. But here, the only thing and you can get this graph and study it all you want. The only thing we want you to pay attention to, again, is office and what's happening with that. And if you notice in all the other sectors, the vacancy rates are kind of holding steady.
They're down below 5%, all of them.
Yeah, which is awesome. Office space, you're at 12.4. And we understand why. Loan delinquency rates, it's a non-factor. 4% would be the historical average, and you're less than 1%, which means they're not, handing the buildings back to the bank yet. All right, so let's look at the industry. A couple of comments. So you've heard me say this before. Now you hear Zillow saying it. And that is that when you look at the industry, the way to think about it is you have all these players. Notice we put us at the top. Real estate companies and real estate agents. But then you have the insurance industry. You have the mortgage industry. You have home builders, institutional buyers, title and escrow, right? And the power buyers and that whole other group. And then you have the portals, the Zillows, the Realtor.coms or whatever. And everyone, we get it wrong when we think that they're not in the real estate business. Everybody is in the real estate business. And by the way, they're all in search of more profit. And because they're all in search of more profit, they're all going to converge towards the middle. They're doing it, right? Zillow gets out of iBuying and you go, yeah. And then you look up and go, oh no. They've given up iBuying and they're going to come right back at my money again. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yep. But you understand that they're all in all of them, right? You look at the title industry, but the title industry, the biggest title company also owns some of the most popular technology that you use every day. So are they in the real estate business? You look at Rocket Mortgages, say, they're a mortgage company, which, by the way, did approximately 9% of all mortgages, refi and purchase money mortgages last year, according to them. Are they in the real estate business? Heck yeah, they're in the real estate business. They're already experimenting in Detroit with salaried agents. By the way, so using Rocket Mortgages is no different than you going and using RE/MAX Mortgage. A little weird, isn't it? Because after a while you realize that my vendors are my friend, are my enemy, are my frenemy. Who do I do business with? And I'm just going to give you some basic advice. Do what you need to do to help your buyers and sellers and for you to run your business in a way that makes you the most amount of money. And whatever decisions you make in those regards, those are the right, that's correct. Just keep an eye out and understand that every vendor that you do business with is absolutely headed towards taking more money from you eventually. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. That's just going to happen. We formed businesses like Keller Mortgage really in the beginning as a defense mechanism. Because at the end of the day, if they're going to own everything, then we should all go own everything. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got to have solutions that don't put money into pockets of people that theoretically want more money from us than we should pay, if that makes sense. So that's all you have is just
You're also, in this drawing, you have all of these companies that are trying to get further and further upstream when it comes to leads. And there's a simple truth about leads.
Sure. Well, the number one reason that firms like Keller Williams or Compass actually build their own tech, and you can come up with all the reasons why you think that we do it, but the number one reason that we do it is to serve as a governor for what all others charge. We're not necessarily going to be better than everyone else on everything, nor will they. But if there's someone over here that sets the price of technology and over time in such a way that people look up and they have a choice on pricing, what do you think that does? You economy scholars, it holds prices down, right? And that's why you do it. Okay? It's one of the fundamental reasons why you do things like that, right? So let's just kind of talk through the industry real quick. We talked about Zillow. Zillow Offers. It's really interesting, isn't it? Zillow Offers. And I know a lot of people took a lot of delight in talking about all the money that Zillow lost. And I just want to publicly say that we should never, we don't need to celebrate any of that. The truth of the matter is that they got in too fast and they tried to do too much. And you looked at the other companies that did this, the OfferPads and the Open Doors, and they had been doing this for a while. So they understood repairs, they understood how to deal with contractors. They had better ground game than Zillow. Zillow didn't have any ground game. So when they jumped in, and they jumped in big, they did too much. And then they left it, which again, I find fascinating that they left it. I understand going, oops, we're going to slow it down. We're going to, we got it way over our skis. We're going to slow down. We're going to get this right. We're going to deal with what we did. And instead, they just took the whole thing and just threw it out the back door and said, we're just exiting it. We're in it. We were going to dominate. Oh, made a mistake. We're out.
I think that's when all of the aggregators looked up, 91% of all of their new revenue came from core services, which is generating leads and getting them to y'all. And yeah. I think they realized that.
Yeah, I think it's just fascinating that happened. They spent over $500 million on showing time.
Yes.
And all you're going to see, and they announced their super app, looks very like that, by the way, right? And we'll see where it goes, right? Power buyers help an estimated 15,000. So the power buyers being Knock, being who was the second biggest one?
Well, I know we're all really proud.
Orchard.
Who?
Orchard.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's Knock, Orchard, and then Homeward, which is our own Tim Hyatt.
Yeah, cheer for Homeward. That's a company
that's
that was born in this.
Yep.
We love
I
those
agree.
guys.
Absolutely. Let's do more of that, you guys. You do more of that. Yes, and way to go, Tim. So yeah, they did 15,000. That's not a lot, but I think it's the beginning of us seeing non-traditional lenders show up and offer easier, more creative solutions to financing challenges, and that's a new phenomenon that never existed before. So I think they're just going to continue to grow. They'll have to change their products as time goes on because, one product will be more popular during a certain time period than others. But I think they're here to stay. I think the commercial data giant CoStar is probably the most interesting thing of all of this. Those of you in the commercial real estate industry, you have your opinion of CoStar, and you're fairly vocal about that. In the residential space, they've decided to say that Zillow is bad, but we're good. And I look up and I go, I don't know how I feel about someone who immediately comes out talking that way. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. Their game plan is to get every one of you to help them, right? They bought Homes.com, they bought HomeSnap, and their stated goal is my listing, my lead, and we love all of that until they tell you what it's going to cost you. Then you're going to look up and you might go, well, that's expensive, right? And now we've given them all the data. That could be troubling. So again, this is not a plug for or against what they're going to do because they're going to do it no matter what Gary Keller says. they're going to do what they want to do. They're the most valuable real estate business in the entire industry, twice the value of Zillow. So just pay attention to what's going on with that, right? They could do good. They could do great things. Let me also say that I don't want to leave this stage and leave you in any impression that I'm being negative. I'm just being an observer of. The next thing you're going to see is they too are going to say, we're going to advertise your properties for you. So you got to remember one thing, and that is he who controls the leads controls the industry. And if tomorrow morning all you're doing is buying your leads from Zillow, Realtor.com, CoStar, and Rocket Mortgage, that's an interesting world. Right now, that's an amazing world. And if you were doing that, I would say, that's awesome, right? I would also say be very careful, because you can look at the REO world, right? The bank-owned properties, and real estate agents would gear up. They'd use huge volume. They would win all the awards for volume. And then all of a sudden that market would go away and their businesses would drop to the floor and they'd have to rebuild them. So I would say that if you choose to get your leads from businesses like that, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And you should not ignore the other side of your business. Right? So I would say to someone, if you're getting the majority of your business from Rocket or from any of them, I would simply say you're probably weighted too heavily on that, and you should be careful. That's all. Is that fair enough?
We look at the numbers. The strongest, most resilient businesses have multiple sources of lead flow, and about 3 to 5 for our top teams.
That's it. Thank you, Jay. I think that's the takeaway of what's happening in the industry right now. Make sure that you have your 3 to 5 buckets, and that as a professional, every day you wake up and you make sure that you're working your different buckets of sources of business. And as long as you do that, you're going to be fine no matter what. Okay, I think that would be the takeaway. Federal eviction moratorium expires, but foreclosures still remain low. So this is a good thing, right? So the non-bank lenders gain market share and pivot to purchase as refi market wanes. Sure. So this is the Rocket Mortgage. This is Loan Depot, and here we go. Right? They have to get bigger into purchase money, which is getting in directly into your line of work. Right? And the last one is Brad Inman sells Inman. All right. Let's jump over and look at this real quick, and we're going to go fast. I didn't need to comment, did I? No. In fact, I sent him a congratulatory note. Good for him.
Good for
Yeah, good for him. Absolutely. All right, let's look at this real quick. All right, so what do we have, about 3 minutes left? We're probably going to take about 6. We're going to walk right through this fast.
Yeah.
So this first one really matters, and this is what percentage of home sales are first-time home buyers? And this really matters to you and I, because the historical national trend line is around 40% of all sales. We've seen it as high as 50 when we got the federal government jumped in.
They had the first-time homebuyer tax credit to try to get them back into the market.
Yeah, they were trying to get them back into the market. And most likely you're going to see things like that again, okay? Right now we were on a downward trend, 35, 34, 33, 33, 31. And we're back actually up to 34, and that's very promising, right? Primary reason for purchasing a home. So again, I just find all this interesting. At one level, we know all of this, but it's still helpful to have it reinforced. And so in this survey, 28% said it's desired the reason they bought a home was they want to own one, right? 11% said they just want a larger one. 10% said we want to be closer to friend and family, right? 7% said we have a change in family situation, right? Desire for a home in a better area. We know all of this. If you look at there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 main reasons: retirement, smaller home, bigger home, different area, job. I want to own it. I want to be near people.
The opportunities at the bottom I don't think that they understand that historically they're still very affordable, and there's also this financial opportunity that we have a chance to educate them on in terms of getting into home ownership versus renting.
Yeah,
that's our huge opportunity.
Yes, and I think the whole point of this is that when you're out just working in your community, you're listening for these signs, because when these signs show up, this is when people make a decision, right? Tenure in your previous home. So this is interesting, right? In 2021, 8% were 1 year or less, you guys.
It's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? 8%.
And they probably made money.
1 out of 12 were in their house less than a year. Oh, absolutely. They did it because they did make money. That's why they did it, which is fascinating. 16%, which again is a massive number, is 2 to 3 years, right? 14, 4 to 5, 10%, 6 to 7. I mean, there you go, right? So this whole idea, now, will that continue? That'll be interesting. That'll be interesting. Not sure that's going to continue much longer.
I think it came back to what Ruben said. Their taste in homes, what they wanted, changed dramatically, and people made a lot of very quick decisions. And we might see some buyer's remorse, and people say, I didn't really need 5 acres in the country. We'll see.
Yeah, I think they actually do it when they realize they can do it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, right? They do it. They look up and they go, there's a moment in time and I can do it. Why not do it?
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all, by the way. Right? We don't even look at this. Their expected tenure is never correct. What they tell you, remember, was this whole thing of buyers are liars? Buyers are not liars. They just never thought about it when they talk. So they say something and they hadn't actually thought about it. And then life happens and it's very different than what they predicted. So these don't matter. Weeks in home search, I find this fascinating. Think about this. It used to be like 10 and it only dropped to like 8 the last 24 months. I would have thought it would have been 2 days.
I wish they tracked offers made in home search.
Oh.
We would see a real spike.
Yes. Isn't that the truth? Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing I always found fascinating about this was, if this is the average, then you factor that in as a business person and recognize that on average, this is what it's taking for whatever variety of reasons. First step, they looked online, right? And that's not new. This has been going on now, for 13, 14 years.
Yeah, but what's interesting here is everybody in the technology business has predicted that the number of people who contact a real estate agent first would start going down, and that is not the case. Y'all are holding the line.
No, it's not. No. It kind of seems like, yeah. But by the way, what the survey doesn't say is, did they look online at a real estate agent's properties? It just says they went online. So we don't know if they're on a search portal and someone else's. We don't know, right? The game would be for you to have your own website, right? And then try to drive traffic to that, sure. Looked online for information about the buying process, right? Contacted a bank or a mortgage lender at an all-time high. We talked about this, and we kind of decided that probably the main reason is because they pour so much money into traditional media telling the buyer that they should do that, right? I can't watch an NBA game without seeing Rocket Mortgage. Yeah, they spend a lot of money telling the consumer, come to us first and we'll find your realtor. Yep. Anyway, so there you go. Right, talked with a friend or a relative about the buying process. Right, there you go.
That's your referral opportunity right there.
Information sources buyers used, real estate agent, 87% of the time. Mobile or tablet device, 74. Open house, 41. And they say open houses went away. No, they did not. Online video site, 40%, right? Where buyers found the home they purchased, 51% on the internet, 28%, the real estate agent told them about it. Now, again, these are imperfect because it could be that the real estate agent told them to go online and do that, and then send the properties you find to me, and we'll analyze it and go together, correct? Yeah, and the surveys don't, they have no way of judging when the real estate agent got involved in that conversation. So this data is not, pure, if you get that, right?
So also, if there's only 3 houses for sale in the city, right, Gary, everyone saw it online.
It's fair.
Yep, that's fair. Yeah, value of website features, we've seen all of this. Detailed property info, property photos, floor plans, recently sold, neighborhood information, virtual tours, your contact information, all of that, as you can tell, all of that actually matters to us as buyers.
The 2 things that stood out for me just really quick were virtual open houses and virtual listing appointments both went backwards like 20%. So I think those were, they jumped last year as a product of the pandemic, and people don't really care that if they stick around. They want to go see the house in person.
I think that absolutely is fascinating, and you're correct. Yep. Method of home purchase, there you go. Right? Well, you notice that for sale by owners over the last 15, 16 years have steadily decreased. Isn't that the oddest thing? Because you would think in a market where everything sells, put up a sign that sells it. But it got complicated, right? Whoever thought that in the greatest seller market ever, sellers would hire more realtors than ever?
I thought that.
You did not.
I did.
You did not.
I did. You got everybody trying to attack you on realtors. We're like a swarm of bees. They swing and we go and then we come back. And they can't stop what we're doing.
Yeah. Here's the one that drives me crazy. And I say this every year and nothing changes. And that is, when you sit down with a buyer, get them to sign a buyer agency agreement.
Do it.
And if you're not doing it, start doing it. And I know a lot of people tell me that goes, man, I'm afraid they'll say no. They don't. They don't. They don't say no. Just like sellers don't say no to a listing agreement. Buyers don't either. It makes sense to do it. You should do it. So everyone's going to leave here and you're going to go do it. You should do it. Absolutely, you should do it. Right? And they don't mind doing it because it makes sense to them. It makes sense to sign something like that. Right? And it's just a simple pledge is all it is. But it allows you to explain your services, what you charge for your services, and allows them to sign an agreement that says that they will use you, and if they want to break it, you can get out of it. But in the time that it's there, you both have an agreement, and here's the agreement, right? What do they want from their agents? Well, we already know that. Find the right property, help us negotiate it, help us get the right price, help us with the paperwork, right? And how they found their agent. 47% said what, guys?
Referrals.
That's up.
It's
Look
up.
at that.
It's up in the last couple, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If you add in the agent-to-agent referrals, more than half of all the business is by referral.
Think about that. Think about that. That's exactly right. If you add referrals between agents, which, by the way, that 5% mystifies me because everybody that sells buys.
100%. But consider the fact that everybody that was in that chart is spending more money than ever before in history to get upstream on your folks, and more of them are getting referral than ever before.
Okay. So if there were 6.1 million sellers, then there were at least 5 million or so buyers. How come you didn't refer all of them?
Well, 13% of them were repeat business. I'm keeping that. But that still means we had 60% of the market was locked up within our attainable action. Nobody can touch that.
By the way, if you're not the first person, hit the road.
Get it.
Yeah. By the way, what it means is if you show up and you're the first person and you're professional and they like you and they trust you, they hire you. So speed to the lead, speed to the appointment is actually the number one determinant on who represents who. So if you're lazy and you think, well, I don't want to be pushy, I want to take my time, you're broke.
You hear all 5 ISAs clapped at that speed to the lead.
Yeah, don't do that, right? Most important factor for buyers, come on. Duh, honesty, experience, reputation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they want to trust you. Home is a financial investment. Again, 86% said it's a good investment, right? Is it better than the stock market? 50% say yes. 35% say almost as good. Wow, wow, wow. That's what we do. Yep. Repeater referrals, there you go. 90% say they would definitely or probably use you again. But what was the number?
13.
Yeah,
But we'll see it's 29% on sales, so maybe they're using them to sell the house. But still, it could be higher. We know that. Got to stay in touch, folks.
Yeah, they said they would use you again. They said they would do it. And yet they don't. Why?
Because the relationship devolves. It's an indictment on us. The truth is, the wealth is in the relationships that we have, and we need to foster those every day.
Yeah, and we understand a certain percentage get hijacked by new relationships and all of that, but it should be much higher than it is. When you're in an industry that has that kind of a commitment to reuse you, wow. Okay, almost financial honesty, be good. Yeah, okay. We got all that. Okay, how sellers found their agent, 39% referral. There we go. 29% used them before, which is what Jay said. So what are we saying there? Almost 70, was that 68%? 78, no, 68. So 68% either referred or used them before. Think about that, by the way.
Which kind of means, since we're the largest real estate ecosystem under one brand that the world's ever known, we actually probably all know every buyer and seller next year. Referring them to each other would be the key for us.
Yep.
It's one of the main reasons that we gather like this, right? Your goal is to leave with 20, 30, 50 cards or relationships that you then put into your data bank and then you stay in touch with. It's golden. It's literally money in the bank, right? Seller interviews, again, get there first or go home. 82%. Hire the first person that walks in the door, right? Crazy. Highest it's ever been, by the way. Both. Yep. Yeah, what do they want? Same thing. They want you to price their home competitively. They want you to market it. They want you to help sell it. They want you to negotiate it. They want you to do all those things. We know that. Yep. What are the most important factors? Reputation, honesty, honest and trustworthy. And we had this conversation, and we believe that all of that is how you, honestly, it's how you dress. It's how you present yourself. It's how you talk. It's giving them confidence, both buyers and sellers, that you are the professional that they want to work with, right? Compensation negotiations. This is one. Real estate agents initiate a discussion of compensation 47% of the time. I love that. You know, in the studies that we did for years on compensation, what we discovered was the men and women that earned the most amount of money were those that offered a menu of services to the seller and gave them a choice from the lowest price up to the highest price. And what they discovered was when they gave them choice and explained what they would be willing to do or what would happen in between those choices, they chose the higher price.
I never get the cheapest glass of wine on the menu, right? I don't want to, not on the date with Wendy, right? You offer them choice, people will gravitate to value.
What our study showed was that when you offer a menu of services, let me say this correctly, when you offered a menu of services with varying prices based upon that your commissions overall would be higher than they were without doing that.
Yep.
Meaning that a certain percentage of people will choose the more expensive amount if you just gave them a choice, by the way, right? Same again, 89% would use you again, right, or refer you. Method used to sell a home, 90%, right, would use a broker. Nothing's really changing right now. Nothing, right? Incentives, well, we understand that, right? And the last thing, and we're out of here, is, each year we simply do, we do the national average or a sampling of average of commissions inside Keller Williams, just to give you a sense of what everyone's charging. So for sellers, it's at this past year it averaged at that. For buyers, it averaged that. And we're done with that. Congratulations. You're only about 10 minutes over. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us. Stop.
The hours that those three and our entire research team spend in order to put all that together is frankly unbelievable, mind-blowing. They do such a great job. Okay, so Levi, come on out. So we're going to do something a little different. Normally, I would say goodbye, love you, having a great family reunion. But instead, I'm going to hang out for about another 25 or 30 minutes with you, if that's okay. And I want to introduce you to two individuals. Thought it would be fun. We thought about all the different ways that we could introduce you, and we said, you know what? Given the way that we've done family reunion this year, this would be the time. So Levi Rogers, welcome. Have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
So Levi, now you don't have your hearing aid on.
I don't have my hearing aids on, no.
Okay, so which is the ear I have to talk to?
We're good, right here.
Okay, good. Okay, so you'll find out about that in just a second. So Levi, you just recently affiliated with Keller Williams.
Yes, sir.
And you've accepted as one of your responsibilities, thank God, to be the head of our new KW military.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Thank you.
So what people may not know is that when they say you built a big business, but you were actually number one for RE/MAX in the United States, number 3 in the world.
We've done pretty well. So.
You were. And then you left and went on your own. And then you hooked up with us.
Yes, sir. We went on our own as independent, had a tremendous growth. I've got a lot of really great people, and so growth presented challenges, but it was also pretty easy because all the amazing people around me, and so, yeah.
And hopefully you found a cultural home with us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, let's talk about, so let's go back. What was your last formal education?
It was high school, and the United States military taught me quite a bit.
Okay. Did you move around a lot?
Yes, sir. Initial duty station was in New York, and then Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And then after that, I stayed at Fort Bragg, but quite a bit of deployments throughout the world.
Because?
It's just we had a war to fight and people to train, and yeah.
Gotcha. So you left high school and you headed into the military. You went to the military out of high school?
Right out of high school, yeah.
Why'd you do that?
Well, where I was from, I just didn't really have any, it felt like I didn't have many opportunities. I was delivering pizza, and I didn't have a college fund or a family situation to where they'd pay for it. And so my grandfather was a World War II veteran, and I felt that, let me join the military and get a skill and see where it takes me.
Where did it take you?
It took me on a wild ride. But the neat thing about the military is it exposed me to a tremendous amount of awesome people. It taught me a ton, and ultimately brought me down to San Antonio, Texas, which is a pretty great place to be.
So tell me one or two things that it taught you when you reflect back on that. You were there how long in the military? How long were you in the military?
I was in 17 years.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
So I would have stayed in and retired traditionally, but because of the IED that we struck, it just and the Army took great care of me. They offered me a wonderful job, but I just emotional trauma that I experienced from four men lost their lives under my direction, and it was just time for me to find something new. But back to your question in terms of what the military taught me, right time, right place, right uniform. It was always...
He's crying, by the way. He's a crybaby.
Yeah, I tear up. I tear up. Yeah, it's,
I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where does that heart come from?
Where's the heart come from?
Well, I don't meet many men that cry every time we talk.
Well, I think that the realization that I would not have anything that I have today without so many people that have given me so much, whether it's benevolence, whether it's the real estate community, whether it's Pedro who ran and pulled me out of a vehicle, or, you know, or the people that have helped me build an amazing business, you know. From the bottom of the totem pole up to the top, I have people that are extremely loyal to me and have put in overtime to help make all this happen. And so it's just, I think truth just comes from the heart.
I wanted everyone to meet you in this way because when they look at the enormous business that you've built, and then they realize that a lot of that has come through your relationship with Zillow. Mm-hmm. A lot of people would write you off and say, oh, he's a Zillow guy. Anybody could do that. And then they meet you and they realize, no, you're special. You're not like anyone else. You're truly a unique human being.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So if you were going to give anyone advice today about building their career in real estate, what do you say to us?
To a veteran or to?
Okay. Well, what do you say to a veteran?
Well, I think that anybody who wants to get a career in real estate, it's really just an amazing opportunity. That we have a core value of my company where we look in the mirror before we look through the glass, and I mean, tons of opportunity in the mirror in real estate. There's nobody's going to stop you from achieving whatever it is that you want, and I think the most overlooked opportunity we have in real estate is access to information and opportunity to invest in it ourselves. So many real estate agents out there don't use their own trade to grow their own wealth.
I know. Crazy, isn't it? I know. So you've also accepted and working directly with us as the head of KW Military. Any thoughts you want to share about that? We're really excited and proud.
Well, I think that I look back at the business I've created, which is doing very well, but then I look at opportunity and don't always define that by money, more so impact. We have an opportunity to utilize the KW network of 180,000 people and a much broad-scale, larger influence capability to bring in many people that are currently serving their families and expose them to this wonderful thing that we know is real estate. Yeah. And I feel that I have a duty and obligation to speak back to the military, veteran, the warfighter community, and share with them what I've learned. Yeah, so that's what I love about this.
Any goals that you've set or that you've thought about that you can share in terms of what you want to now accomplish for the military?
Well, twofold. We're going to educate the entire community of Keller Williams on how to better serve veterans, and I think that opportunities like this rarely come around, but set the goal with Sajak to bring 30,000 veterans into the real estate world over 5 years, and something that we're going to do.
I love that. Yeah. You're a good man, my friend.
Thank you.
It's an honor to know you, and it's an honor to go into business with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have something that we're going off script a little bit. So we have a tradition in the military with coins. Okay. And I don't know if you've been exposed to that, but And we present coins to people when they are for excellence. And to have a man of your stature and influence take the time to focus on a segment of your company to help a population that's so important to me, I just wanted to say thank you. So on behalf of the Military Order of Purple Heart chapter, I'd like to present you this coin and say thank you. This way?
Thank you. So now you see why I wanted you to meet him, right? And very, very special. And we're very excited about this new journey that we all get to take together. All right, one more person I wanted to introduce you to. Stacy, you want to come out? I'm only doing this because this is the last big stage I get to stand on. So, hello, dear. Good to see you. Everyone, Stacy Onan, Stacy, everyone.
Hello there.
So your official date with Keller Williams started on the 27th?
It kind of feels like, yeah, today is day one, actually. Showed up last night at 8 o'clock, and I feel like today is the first official day, and this is a pretty darn cool way to start your job.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. So your new title is the Director of New Business Opportunities for Keller Williams.
Yep.
So you'll be, some of those duties will involve K-Win, K-Score,
Yes.
professional services,
Yes.
and whatever else we can throw at you.
Yes, and I'm game for that.
So let's back up, and if you would, tell us a little about yourself. So you, let's go back to your last formal education.
My last formal education was partial college, dropped out of college.
Okay.
Yep, then I went and did accounting for some construction companies.
You did accounting for construction companies. What does
Yes.
that mean?
I did collections.
Okay. Uh-oh, okay.
Yes, if people thought operations wasn't sexy, collections was not sexy.
How do you do collections? You call people up and say, you owe us money?
Yes, yes, and when you're in a construction and you're doing it with builders, you hold their building products until they pay.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, and you enjoyed that? That's a trick question almost, isn't it? Yeah, I loved doing that.
I will admit that I loved the success of bringing down the collections. I loved the success of seeing the results you got. So then it drove me to do it more. I'm very much, if I can see that end game.
I got you. So from there, you went into sales yourself.
Yes, I went into real estate in 1998. My very first brokerage was in a little town called Chino Valley, Arizona, and I sold out of a double-wide trailer. Yeah, it was big time.
Yeah. And how'd you do?
I started in March 28th, I believe it was, of 98.
Yeah.
And by the end of December, I made $85,000 that year.
Wow. Wow, congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
it was a great first year.
Yeah. How old were you?
I
12.
was definitely 10 or 12.
Yeah.
I believe I was 25 or 26 at the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
It's funny. I had a really fun selling career. I got to do developments. I got to find land, bring them to the developer, take it through zoning, do entitlements, create subdivisions, split lots, sell the dirt, sell for the builder. I got to do a little bit of everything in that town, and I loved it. And then I decided 3 years in, because I was young and crazy, to open my own brokerage.
That's nuts.
Looking back now, yes.
No.
At the time, it was what you do.
Yeah.
It was my next step. It was great. I had it until 2008, and that was when I sold it to a Keller Williams. It was my first stop with you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But you were there just a short time.
I was. I was in Keller from 08 to about 2012 or 13.
And then you fell
Then
in love?
I did. I met my husband. We dated long distance for a couple years, and one of us, we both had really big careers at the time. And 15 years in real estate, you wake up, you sell a house. It was great, and I had to make that decision to start over. And he was worth it. He's still worth it.
I've met your husband, and I can instantly see that. Okay, so you moved to Phoenix.
I did. I moved to Phoenix, and my sister was starting real estate at the time. So the way I was raised was in maybe not the perfect household, we'll call it. And so my sister did most of the raising of me as a child. And so it was one of the coolest things to get to turn around and mentor her in her first years in her real estate career.
Wow.
That was awesome.
How'd she do?
She's doing amazing.
Okay.
And I had a CE school, so I got to teach and got to rewrite the GRI program for Arizona and do just a lot of fun stuff. And then there's a gentleman named Jim Sexton, who I will always call my broker crush forever. He was my broker mentor, that person that just taught me everything about what an agent needs when they come to their broker, whether it be emotional or contract-wise. And I remember he'd been trying to get me to go to work for him for a while, and he called me one day, and I was driving down the road, and he went so far to recruit me as to tell me how long it would take to get to the office and all of that. And so then I went and I did managing brokering and operations for Realty One Group.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, that's a virtual company.
So Realty One, we were all office space. We were all Phoenix office space.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, in Vegas, in California. Yeah.
And tell me what you did for that.
I had about 2,500 agents under my license in Arizona. We had about 6 brokers. And then I had the California, we did like operations for his corporate stuff. So the really fun stuff like the ICAs and the PNPs and building the new programs, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And then I got a call from someone that asked if I wanted to take what I'd been doing at Realty One Group and just do it on a bigger level. Just go, and that was when I made the transition to EXP. They were at about 30 states at the time, and I got there in March, and the goal was to have them all opened by October, and we made it.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
And you were there for,
I was there for just about 4 years.
and you were the president in
Yes.
charge of the brokerage side of the company.
Yes.
So how'd that go?
It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I had a great group of people that I got to work with every day. We got to open, different areas and just learning and really, truly learning licensing law in all the states and learning the intricacies. It was a lot of fun.
Globally as well.
Yes, globally as well. Oh, yeah.
You ended up having,
Did Canada and,
yeah.
yeah.
You ended up with how many employees?
In my group of operations, we had just over 1,000 employees.
Wow. Wow.
It's a lot of staff.
And then you and I met.
Yes. Yep. Matt Selecki, who I think plays the best long game of anybody I've ever known in my life,
Probably
kept in
so.
touch with me for 2 years. He first put me on the phone with Mark King, and that felt like old home week. We got to talk about Lake of the Ozarks and everything Missouri, and it was awesome. And that was a great one because it set the tone for what I was going to do next. And then I remember you and I got on a Zoom, which I think was supposed to be 30 minutes. Didn't really work out that way, but it was supposed to be 30 minutes.
Yep.
And I remember coming downstairs, and my husband looked at me, and he said, I have not seen you this excited in a long time.
Oh,
So that was cool.
that's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Everyone's going to ask you, so I might as well ask you, and that is, why would you leave? Why would you leave that and join with
Sure.
Colliers?
And it is a really good question. Operations and contracts and setting up things and handling new business lines and opening new ventures, you can find a way to do that everywhere. The one piece that you and I really talked about a lot was there was just, for me, for my style of working, there was just a different culture connection piece that I was missing.
Sure.
Operations can be lonely, and I really wanted that connection. And it was amazing to me in that after you and I spoke, I got to meet Carl, who truly was fascinating to me, because when you read his resume of just brilliant business, what you don't read in a resume is the way Carl shows up.
Yeah.
And then after you meet Carl and you meet all the other people, it was person after person after person.
And we made you meet them all.
And they made me meet every one of them, I think. My husband asked, how was your 3-day interview?
Yeah, that's right.
But it was such a nice, refreshing, it was a welcoming team environment. I really enjoyed the way everyone communicated, and everyone was just open and upfront and willing to share and ask questions. And I think one of my favorite things about you is my phone is covered with more pictures of Millie and your granddaughter than I could imagine. And
Yep.
I loved that. Like, I think the funniest thing Gary said to me the last day I left was, he said, what shocked you the most? And I told him it was him. Probably something you shouldn't say on a job interview, but I told him it was him. And I meant it, because you and I had never interacted, really. And it was, even getting on the Zoom with you, how comfortable it was. How much fun we had in that first Zoom.
We did.
How hard it was actually to get to the business part of the first call on Zoom, because we were wrapped up in hunting and fishing and grandkids and dogs. And
Business will come, by the way.
exactly. That's the truth. But that was something that was unique.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that.
Yeah, us too, by the way. So sit back and tell us a little about you. So when you're not working, what do you enjoy doing?
I love just about anything outdoors. I love to hike. I'm not a good fisherman, but I'll do it for 8 hours a day. I love to be in the woods. During the pandemic, one of my favorite things to do was take the camp trailer out and work from the woods. As long as you have Wi-Fi, that was the coolest thing. And so just about anything outdoors.
Yeah, I can see those calls. Excuse me just a second. That's a woodpecker. I need to, yeah.
Right? But I do a lot of that. And right now it's a little bit of moving going on in the house.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fun. It's an adventure.
Yeah.
I'm almost done at this point.
You're fast. You're fast.
Yep.
You went in and rented a home, and then you bought a home.
We're working on it. I'm driving one of your realtors crazy right now. But no, it's been fun. Outdoors really is my happy place.
So what would you like to publicly ask me?
That is a great question. Ooh, by the way, we had nothing planned for this, so this is awesome.
Well, we haven't talked.
We have not talked. It's been about a week. What would I like to ask you? What is your favorite part of this? Your genuinely favorite part of coming and doing this?
Of this or
This event, like what excites you the most about this?
the people?
Just getting to engage again?
For me, this industry has always been about these people,
Right.
the realtor. I have a degree in real estate, and I came out of college, chose to sell houses, and loved working with buyers and sellers.
Right.
But I fell in love with the entrepreneur. I fell in love with the salesperson, and the challenges, the highs, the lows, all of that.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity to get together and see each other and interact, even if it's from 30 feet or 100 feet, means everything to me, to be honest with you. It means everything.
And when you and I talked,
I may not show it, but it means everything.
It does. And when you and I were talking in your office, everything was about, you weren't talking about the size of your company or anything like that. You were genuinely just concerned about, how do I make their business better?
Yes.
How do I allow them to have the business they want,
Yes.
sell what they want, be what they want? And I also loved that it wasn't your definition of their business happiness. It was their definition of their business happiness. And those were some of the key things that I picked up on in that.
Yep,
I liked
absolutely,
it.
100%. So one would have to ask this question, and that is to go from a virtual-based business to a business that has physical space as well. Does that confuse you?
No, it doesn't. It's going to be fun because, I started in brick and mortar, moved to virtual, going back to the brick and mortar, and then even that combination of all of it and just working through it is a lot of fun. And
That's right.
And figuring out all the different ways to engage your partners, your community. It's such a fun challenge to make sure that you can do both ends. And that's one of the pieces you and I have talked about a lot, is
That's
being
right.
able to bridge that and bring both sides to that. And you know I like a good puzzle, so anything that looks like a good puzzle, I am in for. And
That's right.
That's one of the things I'm very much looking forward to, is listening to all your ideas, which I know I've only heard like a crack in the door, and I'm ready for the rest. And I was making a list on the plane for you and Carl already. But it was funny when I got to your office just the other day, I was laughing because John nailed me on the head. I don't remember his exact words, but he was like, "You just look so excited." And I am, and I was.
You always look excited. You never don't look excited.
A lot of people do get bored with like the brokering side and the contract law and the real estate. That is genuinely what excites me.
Yeah.
Like, I love to build a good spreadsheet that shows what you can do in all 50 states and Canada for licensing law. Like, that's exciting to me. And
You're very weird.
I am. I know. I'm good with that.
You're very
I am
weird.
good
Thank
with that.
God. Thank God.
Yes, there
Thank
has
God.
to be nerdy,
Thank
weird
God.
people in the world, and I'm one of them. I love it.
Yeah.
But, and it's been fun because I even found being an agent, kind of like you talked about, where I loved selling. I did it well, although I coached myself out of being the lead listing agent and put myself in a buyer's agent role on my own team because it was where I fit.
Yeah.
And then I really did realize I missed brokering. There was nothing more satisfying to me than when an agent comes in and they're having that like worst moment in real estate where they feel like, I just really screwed up and it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
And when you can be there for them and help them and coach them through that
Yep.
and let them understand that, okay, you made a mistake. Yeah.
Yep.
Brush off, move on.
Yeah.
Those are what kept me in real estate. And every time I went back to selling, I found myself, whether it be through teaching, gravitating right back to,
You got pulled back into
I
it.
did.
Yeah.
I did.
I had the same curse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's when you get to meet them and somebody says to you later, something you taught them or showed them made an impact. That's when it's worth it.
Now you have two big dogs.
I have two big dogs.
Yeah. How big are they?
My big shepherd, he is pretty much bigger than I am. When I sit in a chair, we're eye to eye, and he's much smarter than I am. There is no doubt in the universe. And then I have Lex Luthor. He is a big pit bull that is just that jock from high school that's super sweet, and he's a big baby. And my husband is in Puerto Rico getting ready to move them over here. I'm ready. You got to be good to drag me from Puerto Rico to Austin. That says a lot for you.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to share with us? I just wanted everyone to have a few minutes just to meet you. They'll get that opportunity to meet you over the next year
that's it.
as we go about our work. But I wanted you to say hi to them, and I wanted they to say hi to you.
I really want to thank everybody for being so welcoming. This has been an incredible welcoming. Everybody has been incredible. And please come, meet me, introduce yourself. Let me know how I can help. That's genuinely what I'm here for.
Thank you, dear.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you soon.
I'll walk out with you. All right. Next up, we've got Carl, our CEO, and Mark, our president. They're going to take over the stage for a few minutes.
Woo! How we doing?
I'm not crying, you're crying.
You've cried more than me this week.
I have.
Yes, you have.
Levi got me. I swore I wasn't going to cry, and Levi got me. One of the cool things about getting back in person is Gary gave Carl and I the ability to create our own T-shirt, and I'm super excited. So let me know what you think about this one.
Mark. One more time, Mark.
Some of you will get that reference.
So you're not a designer, is what I'm hearing. That's
I
it,
know,
right?
I know.
Good, okay, good.
I thought it was
leave
really
that to John
clever.
Keller. We're going to leave that to John.
That's
All
right. So it's very rare that someone comes into your life or your company that immediately gives you some of their DNA. And one of the cool things about getting to work with this Avengers team that Carl's leading is he immediately brought value to our organization. And Carl, we now, across our entire ecosystem, use this opening we call a mission moment. What's a mission moment?
Wow. Okay. Well, those of you that had a chance to hear Levi's story and his mission and what he does, that's an example of a real-life mission moment. And the mission moment comes from really a lot of service back to our country, but it's to remind all of us what we do and why we do it. And in the middle of everything that we do, this ability to pause all the paperwork, the money movement, the transactions, and all those things is to remind ourselves who we are, who we serve, and why we do it. And that moment where we're going to celebrate a lot of records today, but never forgetting what we do, why we do it, and how important that is part of the journey. I want to thank someone who's like the sister I always wanted. I don't know if Wendy Harrelson's if Wendy's around. Is she? You got to stand up, Wendy. I love you. Levi's not here if it's not for you. And I know the two of you are brothers and sisters now as well, Wendy, and that was just powerful. And Gary's ability to make men cry, Levi, I'm used to that. It happens to me all the time, as Mark will tell you. But that mission moment means so much. I want to share another mission moment with you today, though, that I didn't tell Gary about. So
it was nice working with you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just don't know where this is going to go. But one of the things that I believe about our company is we do things right. Not all companies do things right. Not all companies hold true to who they are, the values that they bring, and bring out the best in people. And I consider this just a great honor to share something with you that some of us have seen, but it's about Gary Keller and all that he's given back to the city of Austin, to the music and the musicians that make Austin so special. And without further ado, I want to share that with you. So let's do that.
I think the best way to describe what Gary Keller means to the Austin music scene is he's the patron saint of Austin music.
The work that he's doing to preserve just the greatest part of the city, the reason that everybody wants to live here. Yeah.
He is an incredibly intelligent person. He leads with his intellect and his knowledge, but he also leads with his heart. It's clear in the things that he does.
Gary's an interesting fella, you know. Most people are left or right-brained, and Keller's both. This is a guy who's very analytical, obviously been very successful in business, but he's a musician, artist. He has that mentality as well. It's very rare in someone.
I think his efforts are extremely well-founded, well-intended, and his projects are just really interesting.
I was approached by Gary. He started talking about how much he loved Austin, how he came here in the 70s, and he loved the music scene, and it was part of what drew him here. And he came to me with this idea of I want to keep Austin a music town. That's my goal. And I said, well, I think it's a great idea, man, but you're boiling the ocean at this point. And he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, we're going to do it because I'm relentless and I have the funds to put behind this to keep it a music town. And I thought that was pretty damn awesome. And I said, all right, I'm in. How do you say no to that? we obviously started with the musicians and said, we've got to make sure there are musicians in this town, and they're the first ones getting pushed out. And having to head to kind of further and further out of town. So how do you keep them here? And we figured the best way to help musicians and to keep them here was to fund some of these charities to ensure that these necessary pieces happened. And so we came to HAM and said we want to help ensure that these musicians have health care and have access. We went to SIMS for the importance of mental health and addiction services, obviously in the industry. We went to the folks at AMF about educating musicians and trying to make sure they knew the best ways to make money, etc. And we went to Black Fret because we love the idea of just putting money in musicians' pockets for doing what they do. We've worked with some other amazing charities too, House of Songs, Home, and a few others.
Gary's done a tremendous job in expanding the horizons of the nonprofits in order to help the musicians in the musical community. He doesn't just write a check, not that there's anything wrong with that, but he hires great people that he puts around him that make a difference and affect change.
But I'm so glad that someone cares enough to do something, and so he just kind of inspires you to keep working and say that it's not, even if it's an uphill battle, we got to keep going.
Gary's meant so much to Austin, the music scene, the musicians, the venues. Single-handedly, he has really made sure that some of our most important venues stay around for a long time.
In our case, it's well known. We were getting priced out of the area. I was going to move, and then Gary steps in. He calls my landlord. He buys the building, and he said, "Please stay there." He said, "It's important that we continue to have these places where musicians got started in this town." The story's just incredible, and there he is around town trying to do the same thing all over the town.
My favorite thing about working with those organizations, and this part came from him, was he said, we don't want to tell them what to do because we don't know what's best for musicians. We don't know what's best for venues, but we need to let them tell us. The third key piece of what we do is we realized we really needed to help continue to grow the business side of the music economy.
And his support of BMI coming here has really been instrumental in the effect that we've been able to create gravity here for the industry in Austin.
All of that effort together became what's known as the Austin Music Movement, which is this vision of Gary that turned into something that's really done some amazing things for our city in the last 5 years.
This old world needs love. Let it rain.
Now Gary has his own band, and he plays at his events, which I'm so happy to see because he's such a great player. And he employs a lot of great Austin musicians in that group and gives them an opportunity to work. So it seems like in every facet of Gary's life, he's a real angel for the community.
Well, I can think of no one more deserving than the Darrell K. Royal Award than Gary. His selfless time, his selfless resources he's put into, invested in Austin and creatives in Austin in ways that we can't see the whole picture on it. It's just astounding.
I think the biggest thing I've seen and the biggest thing I've learned from him is just how to be generous and how to do it in the right fashion. And the things that guy has done that I can't talk about, it would move anyone to tears. It's brought me to tears, and I'm basically a robot.
I'm really happy that you guys are honoring Gary Keller. It's so deserving, and I'm hoping he's sitting right there, probably embarrassed. He never seems to want any accolades for the things that he does, but you can tell, how important that this city is to him.
Gary, congratulations from the Sims Foundation, from the musical community as a whole, and any and everyone that you've touched the lives of.
Gary, I'm just so proud and happy that you're receiving this such a deserved award, and most of all that you're actually here to receive it. That in itself is amazing, and I'm happy to be here with you. I love you, buddy.
Hi, I'm Tom Johnston of the Doobie Brothers, and I'm here to congratulate my good friend Gary Keller for winning the Texas Music Legend Award. Couldn't happen to a better guy. I've known Gary for years now, and he is a strong proponent of the musical scene in Austin, Texas. I've played live with Gary, played shows with him, I've watched him play with his band. I have also done a benefit that Gary set up to help the guys in Austin, songwriters and musicians alike. He's just a good guy. That's the kind of people you want on your side. So congratulations, Gary, and the musical community in Austin. Thank you.
Wow. Talk about lives worth living and legacies worth leaving. And I hope I'm in the afternoon sessions today after doing that work. I wanted to point that out because this idea of irrational generosity, I think it embodies what Gary Keller and Mary Pfluger bring to the city of Austin in each and everything to do, everything they touch. It's about making others better and creating just incredible opportunities. And I hope you appreciate the opportunity that I get to share that with you. That award was 2 weeks ago, and it was breathtaking for me to watch and to hear, because he'll never bring it up and you'll never talk about it. On our one team slide, as we think about this idea of embracing our communities and stakeholders, many of you already figured this out. That in many cases, you're the mayor of your town, you're the Rotary Club, you're at the Lions Club, you're helping drive change in your community. And this idea that we should be generous in everything that we do, give, get, do. And this idea and how we support, not only KW Kids Can, but KW Cares, but all the things that are important to the communities we serve, that's part of being a part of the KW family and the KW team. So I want to say thanks, Mark, for letting me share that in our mission moment today. So thank you.
Awesome. I love it. Well, and sometimes doing the right thing gives you accolades from the industry. And so we have just a few on the screen here. We're blessed in the size of our company, being the largest real estate company on the planet under one brand. We get a lot of attention, a lot, always good. And but one of the things that we learned a long time ago from John Maxwell is leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So another way to look at this is the most influential leader in our industry has been recognized yet again as Gary Keller.
Yeah, it's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Now, this is what really matters to all of us, because without our agents, we have nothing. We have no opportunity. And so we track 42 measurements in Keller Williams. You may know this, you may not. It's called our multi-year trend. And in that report, Carl, we set 21 all-time records in the year 2021.
And you said something yesterday. We only track 42 things, right?
Right. We only tracked 42 things. 21 were all-time records.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. One of them that we track is expenses. That was an all-time record too. But that's a different story for a different time. We'll get to the coaching. Okay. But I want to highlight just a few of these that really matter to us as leadership. The GCI per agent, $77,807. It's a 51% increase over the last decade. And you just saw in the vision speech what's actually happening to normal wage growth. And we've got a bunch of information on here, but let me just tell you that the median gross income for all realtors is $43,330. So when you do the right thing, everyone wins. We now have an ecosystem for the first time that we can say our average agent actually earns a living in this business, and we couldn't do that without all of you.
Well done. How about that? Hey, yes, you've been known to bust my chops a little bit on GAAP accounting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about, do you know what GAAP accounting means, or it is?
Well, it's funny because we're having to adult, us realtors, and Jason and I joke about this, Matt Green and I joke about this, is we're having to learn things like EBITDA.
EBITDA.
It sounds like a different language, but we have all these professional Fortune 100 and Fortune 10 executives that are teaching us, and we're learning from Stacy Shirley, our chief financial officer, all these kind of things. So they introduced GAAP accounting to us realtors. And GAAP accounting is where you go get your jeans. That's what it is. So that's what, and that's all you need to know. But yes, and actually, using gap accounting, we were able to discover a lot more details about what our average realtor earns, and it's super fun, super exciting.
Okay.
So let's go to this
So that's
slide.
not gap accounting.
That's not
just
gap
straight
accounting.
GCI,
That's just straight
right?
GCI, that's
Okay,
right. So 1.3 million closed homes. That's actually 1.343 million. It's actually 43,000 there. We don't want to shortchange. We're truly changing people's lives. And one of the things you can think about, the way I think about it, is 6.1 million homes sold in the United States last year. 1 out of every 4.71 of those homes involved the Keller Williams agent.
Who could even say that?
So when
right?
you
think about that.
Well, let's just pause and think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Like, I started as an agent in 2001, and my whole goal was to just get a listing.
Yeah.
Let alone 1 in every 5 transactions in the entire country. So what Gary has built and what all of you have built is truly outstanding and unmatched.
But it's outstanding, and I think for the folks in this room and the folks that are tuning in, how special that is. Finding a house has been really hard the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Having your agent win that house for families
Are you making us cry again? Is that what you're
I know.
Okay.
I just,
Okay.
I don't think, when we look at these numbers, like, we changed 1.3 million lives.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's part of recognizing who we serve in this industry, and the very fact in the toughest time in the industry and the lowest of inventory, the charts that Gary shared, we brought 1.3 million people home. That's pretty good.
It's amazing.
How are you going to beat that?
Well, here's the other thing I've learned by putting this Avengers team of professionals with a bunch of us entrepreneurial. Can I say a bad word up here? Okay, that was a no. Mo said no. That's funny. Well, I was going to repeat something Gary said, but he called us a bunch of wild blank entrepreneurs. And that was a compliment, by the way. And so when you mix a bunch of wild blank entrepreneurs with a bunch of really professional, awesome human beings, what you get is 18 new businesses stood up in the last 12 months at KWRI.
Yeah.
The rate at which we are moving forward to provide value to our agents is unprecedented. And here's just a few that we're working on. You saw, I think we're going to take over the world with Levi alone. But we have all these other amazing humans who've come into our lives. We've reinvented several of our segments. And we're so thankful for all the leaders who've leaned in, raised their hand, and said, I want to help. And we want this to be the most entrepreneurial enterprise in the entire industry. Meaning, we believe in dynamo, right? We call it dynamo. We have the biggest ecosystem. We want our wild blank entrepreneurs to spread their products that solve problems across our entire ecosystem. And we're inviting everybody to the party. So, so here's just a few of those. We'll talk about some more of those in a second. But truly amazing what's happened.
Well, you said yesterday we're getting in business with a new company every few hours, it feels like right now.
That's right, yeah.
And that's the world we're in, team. Mark mentioned this word called value, is how do we establish and create value for our partners and our agents along the way so that you can continue to do what you do well. And so it's been a busy year, Mark, but I'm guessing by next year we'll have 2 pages like that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to warn you in advance, because I hear a lot of people like, we got a lot going on. I'm like, yes, we're going to get more going on, right? Because that's what happens when you play offense, and we are playing offense now.
I love it. We'll go into detail on all these in a different time, but there are some amazing opportunities on this screen for everyone in this audience. So we'll come back to that.
All right. How about this group?
So can I just share? Can we just do something really quick? First of all, we're going to recognize Bill and JP, Lisette, April, and Ammon, who are worldwide leaders, and there's a lot more in worldwide. But if you're with worldwide, whether as an employee or a country, please stand so that we can see you up here.
Jason mentioned we had some people come a long way away. So Bill Soderoff, you, JP, and the team, I can't thank you all enough. truly a part of our one team and what this means. And you every day, despite COVID, despite everything, you're out there bringing Keller Williams and helping change people's lives all over the world. And that's a really high honor and a special honor. So when you look at all those accomplishments, Mark, should we talk a little bit about what they've done?
Let's just look at this. Now, I want you to keep in mind the last couple of years, most of the world's been shut down, even if we're not in Orlando. And this amazing team went and awarded 5 regions in 2021 and didn't meet any of those people in person. I just want you to think about that. When we're struggling with how do we show a house in COVID, how do we get a listing in COVID, we launched entire countries in COVID. And so congratulations on that. We've already awarded 1 region this year. It's Guyana. And what's really cool is it's a little bit like going back in time. When I joined Keller Williams, there was about 15,000 agents, and I was at a training with Mo Anderson, and I said one of the dumbest things, even for me, that I've ever said. And I said, Mo, I missed all the opportunity in this company. We already have 15,000 agents. And she said, oh, darling. And she knew where we were going. Where we were going was 173,000 in the United States and Canada and 200,000 worldwide. But worldwide has 15,000 agents today, just like when I joined. Now, the benefit is that you get to learn from all of our mistakes, and you'll be at 175,000 much faster than we got here. So now in 53 countries, 36 market centers awarded in 2021. Their net was 2,778 in 2021, and $5 million in growth share was distributed in 2021. Congratulations.
About that. One team, baby. One team. You know, it's good to hear that Mo still, when she does "Oh Darling," she was doing that to you, because I get that every time Mo and I sit down, and it's nice to know she's been consistent over this period of time. So I'd really like to take a moment and recognize our coaches a little bit, and specifically, I'd like to recognize Monica Reynolds. Success is simple, not easy, Monica. We know that, right? We know that. And it's just a privilege to come and work alongside you, alongside this team you've built with Sajid and others, and just how important it is. Mark and I, well, we have coaches, right? As we shared. We use coaches. And I'm fortunate to have Gary Keller as a coach, but I have a personal coach as well that has been alongside of me, and I know that coaches bring out the best in me. And what was really great about Mark is coming in is okay, we got to figure out how to support MAPS. We got to figure out how to bring this and breathe this into everything that we do, because coaching makes us better. And Monica, I know you aspire to that, you believe that, and it's exciting when I see where we're going and what we're doing to bring that along.
Yeah, and I always like to share this story. 100 years ago, I had an amazing MAPS coach. Her name's Debbie Frapp. And Debbie truly changed the way, she caused me to adult when I needed it. And I am convinced I would not be standing here today without that MAPS coach, and her specifically. I'd probably be way further ahead, Debbie. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, I promise you I would have been a mess. Well, we had some fun. She likes to be embarrassed too, but I've watched as Monica has helped MAPS evolve in a situation that maybe wasn't always the easiest. So thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you.
Well done.
Now let's look at some of the cool things that MAPS has accomplished. 611 new breakthrough clients in 2021. 13,385 agents completed Bold, most of those in a weird COVID virtual pivot, right? We're opening back up, by the way. 31 KW Worldwide countries now have MAPS coaches. We're spreading out all over the world. 1,556 market center leaders coached in 2021. It's almost all of us, right? 1,799 agents completing group coaching each and every month. And then finally, 1,576 new mastery clients who now get their chance to have a Debbie Frapp in their corner to propel their career. Monica, MAPS team, thank you very much.
It's such an incredible story, and the fact that most of the year last year we were hybrid still, and we're coming back out of, pandemic, hopefully moving to endemic and all those kind of things, and we're back on the road again. Our coaches are back out there in front of groups and talking about it, but I can't speak about it enough. Gary talks about this and everything that we do, and this idea that we should all be learners, we should all be growers, and working on growing really matters along the way. So what I shared with Mark was in our world of technology, in the world of digital first but not digital only, in this world of technology enhanced but physically enabled, what I desperately want you to feel throughout the rest of Family Reunion, and when you leave Family Reunion, is that people really matter. I love that we're evolving in technology and all the things our technology teams are doing. But it's the humans inside of KW that fuel that technology. And when you see the faces, you see the consumers, the homeowners, the clients, when that's your North Star, right? All this other stuff that Chris and Matt and the teams are creating, all the things that you see in the exhibition hall, the partners who are engaging to do this, it's the humans behind that what make our company so special. And I just want to emphasize, when you leave here, I want you to recognize that. If you're a guest here and you were brought here as a guest and you're being recruited, people matter at KW. And we're going to continue to emphasize that and enhance that. It's not going to slow us down on the technology we create, but it's a part of what we do and how we do it.
I love it. All right, so if we could do something really quick. I know we're running a little bit long, and we apologize for that, but this is Carl's first family reunion, and we've been telling him, trying to describe what family reunion actually is. So, Carl, you have your cell phone with you? I brought mine. Let's do this. Can we do a selfie with Carl as a
I'm not very good at selfies, but I noticed that you take a lot of yourself.
So here's the question.
Right? You're really good with a selfie.
Here we go. Here we got long arm. Oh, people are texting me. All right. Cheer. Act like you're happy. All right. There you go. Okay. All right. Well, every day I want you to know that
you were really good at that.
Thank you.
That was
every
really
day
good.
I want you to know that we wake up and we ask a couple questions, and those questions are: what do we do at KWRI that helps an agent get one more listing in this environment? What do we do at KWRI that helps a market center add one more family to their market center? And we have a lot of priority discussions because we have sources and uses is another term that I've heard. Apparently there's a limit on capital. Do y'all know about this? And there's also a limit on time and resources. But what I want you to hear from us is, and I'm just going to say from my heart, this is the most transparent, most loving, most people-first leadership team I've ever been a part of. And I just want to say thank you, Carl Liebert.
Likewise. Thanks for your trust. It means a lot. Mark King was my first recruit, followed very closely behind Matt Green. Matt was a little tougher. He asked a lot tougher questions than you did.
Yeah.
But that'll be but people that know Matt love Matt for that, right? Yeah. But I want to just touch on this briefly, and I want to keep us moving. Is a couple of our regional partners shared they had a word for Austin that kind of.
What was it? I don't know what you're talking about. Was it the tower?
It was called the tower.
The ivory
well,
tower?
I don't know what they're doing in the tower and all those things. And
ooh, how about the C word? We can never use the C word again. Corporate.
What's they doing in corporate? But I wanted to put this up because it's how I was raised in my career at some incredible companies. I learned this from the founders of Home Depot. Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank, and this idea of the inverted pyramid of what we do and who we serve. And this idea that we at KW are here to serve and create value. And one of the reasons we're moving out so quickly on these partnerships and acquisitions is because we owe you better solutions. And that's what we've spent our last year working on, to be able to do that, and we intend to accelerate that. But there's the second block in, as Mark said, we're KW leadership, we're at the bottom of the pyramid. We're fighting gravity every day to not focus on what matters to us, but to focus on what matters to you. The next evolution for us was to not call it the office, not call it corporate, not call it the tower, was to create a support center, a support office that wakes up every day figuring out how do we support our divisional leaders, our regional directors, market centers, agents, and customers. Because if we serve them, they serve many of you. And this idea of serving and pushing up and not losing sight of what our role in the center of the universe here is we're at the bottom of the pyramid, and we're here to make others' lives richer and more valuable. So, Mark, thanks for letting me share that.
And by the way, I wouldn't be me if I didn't say we have 110 job openings right now at the support office. So if you know anyone or have any great referrals, we would gladly accept them. Thank you.
You got it, sir. Okay, can we talk about some of the talent that's coming along here?
Go for it.
Okay, let's do it. Well, we'll see. Let's see. You should talk about this squad.
This is an amazing group, and you may not know this. It may not have reached all the way to you, but we're really excited. And a couple of years ago, Gary Keller approached Matt Green and I and said, we really need to stand up this divisional leader role. And the divisional leader role was a role that truly provided more support to the regions than we were able to provide at KWRI. And what we found is we had maybe one or two people working with 31 regions. And so we're very proud of this group. This is the highest level role in the field with the most amount of service-orientated job description. And what I mean by that is we picked leaders who we knew had a huge heart, who bled Keller red, and who were going to do whatever it took to help those in need. So here are our 6 divisional leaders, if you have not met them: Jonathan, Mark, Kimber, John, and Wendy. Please give it up for our divisional leaders. Thank you.
So I love these guys because they're all in charge of keeping you in line. I don't have to spend as much time keeping you in line because I know they do.
I pay them a lot. This is what happens. No, but honestly, this is such an important group to us because they're the lever that makes sure that our culture runs throughout our entire ecosystem. But I truly want to talk about, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all the work Julia Lachey Israel's done with our diversity, our inclusion, and all those great things. And please hear this. We have a lot of work to do. This industry has a lot of work to do. When right after the George Floyd murder, Matt Green and I got to review a lot of social media posts, and that was a tough, dark time. Mm-hmm. And I'm not afraid to tell you, we had to fire dozens of agents for inappropriate social media context during that time.
Yeah.
Now,
great work. It's a special month too, right?
This is a very special month, and here's what's always happened in our world is we always have family reunion in February, and there's a lot of planning. We actually planned for this. Can you believe that? And so they're not believing me. But what happens is sometimes we forget to talk about
Black History Month.
That's right.
Right?
This is Black History Month, and we're celebrating it.
We're celebrating it, and I'll just invite everybody at 5:30. The Social Equity Task Force is coming together. Our superstar, rock star, Julia Lachey Israel. Yep. She's going to be there in the middle of all this and be leading from the front as she's been doing out there as we've started this journey, and it's just it's an incredible opportunity. And Mark, you may not know this, but there was, since we're celebrating Black History Month, there was a huge milestone last night for our Olympic team.
Wasn't that cool?
Do you remember? So for everybody, Alana Myers-Taylor got the bronze medal in the bobsled, and what most people might have missed is that with her 5th medal across all the Olympics, is she became the most decorated Black athlete in the Winter Olympics, period. Not the United States, but period. And it was such an incredible accomplishment. Her battle with COVID as it started, I was moved to tears last night watching that because it was truly special.
And Gary made a statement, and he went public, and he didn't shy away from the issue. He made a very direct statement, and he made it to all of us. We're going to affect change in our industry. And so we've set about the task, and there's a lot of work to do. We have several initiatives designed to help more people from marginalized communities get into the real estate business, hence free real estate school in most of our ecosystem. We have a ton of opportunities to give a hand up, not a handout, so that everyone can have an equal playing field. And I'm going to invite all of you, because I want to point out these 6 humans did extraordinary things in their real estate careers to get into those positions, and that opportunity exists for everyone here. The next opportunity that I'm really proud of is in the last 2 years, we've added 19 new regional directors. This is our regional directors out there in the field. Please give it up for our RDs.
How about that? And you've even promised this year we're going to get together more often, right?
I promise. We're going to definitely do it. Yes, we're going to get together in person.
I love it. I love it.
All right. I think we're done.
I think we're done. We're almost done. I want to close with a little purpose here. Do you trust me?
I do.
This
is unscripted. Is there a video of me winning the Darrell K. Royal Award?
You really trust me?
No.
I'm just going to ask if I come over this way, okay? All right. First of all, I want, I think we're the last.
Yeah.
Right? But I want to share a quick story with you, but it requires audience participation. And so I would like to have everybody stand up. Good news is blood's going to flow, you're going to be excited, and those kind of things. Hey, Mark, would you come over?
Sure.
I want to hold your hand.
Seriously?
I do. I want to hold your hand. Okay.
No photos.
Come on, we do this all the time on Sundays.
No, we don't.
Okay. This idea that we're in this together is incredibly important. If you don't feel safe, or you would prefer not to, don't reach out and grab a person's hands next to you. But if you do feel safe and you feel comfortable, I would love to have everybody grab the hand of someone next to you. And it's okay if you don't. Now, I had a privilege in 2008 for many of our worldwide partners, and I know there's some folks from Spain, so I apologize in advance. Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol are good friends of mine, so only one time we're in battle with them. In 2008 in the Beijing Olympics, we had a chance to play them in the gold medal game for men's basketball. I think most of you know Coach Krzyzewski's been a mentor of mine and friend of mine for a long, long time. He was there when my father passed away for me. He's been there for my sons when they were growing up. That team, other than probably the dream team that was first formed in 1992, was one of the most talented teams ever. Kobe, LeBron, Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Deron Williams. And I got a privilege to go to the practice before the gold medal game, and Coach brought everybody together. And he had everybody at center court at Wuxong Arena in Beijing, and said, tomorrow's, even though we had beaten Spain by 37 points in the qualifying round, they're a lot better than that, and they're going to give us a run because they are the world champions. We're not the world champions. They're the world champions, and they're going to play against us. And there's going to be some runs in this game where you're going to have to decide, are we going to win the gold medal, or are we going to let this team beat us? And during that process, you're going to have to decide, is your bond as a team more important than your bond as an individual athlete? Now, we're talking about LeBron and Kobe. We're talking about Mark King and Matt Green and Bill Sauter. We're talking about incredible people. And he said, I want everybody, instead of holding hands, is I want everybody to lock arms. I know there's a point to this, people. There is a point to this. And he said, tomorrow, we have to lock arms if we're going to be world champions again, and we're going to bring the gold medal back to the United States. He got his trainers, got his teammates in our world that got their ISAs, got their MCAs, got their team leaders, and he said, we are going to lock arms to go win. And through that, it was extraordinarily powerful for me, but during that gold medal game, when USA led most of the game, but Spain got within 2 points. Just as Coach said, they were going to, it's one of the best, I think it's the best Olympic college basketball, the best Olympic basketball game ever performed. And Coach was talking to Coach D'Antoni and his staff and spending some time, and the players had already come over for a timeout and huddled. And I had mixed feelings about Kobe Bryant for lots of reasons. And I watched Kobe take the best athletes in the world and form the huddle, not standing next to each other, not holding each other's hands, but he made everybody lock arms in that huddle. The coach didn't do it. The players did it. The players said, we're going to be one team, we're going to lock arms, and we're facing some tough competition right now, but we're better together than we are alone. Thanks, Keller Williams. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mark King. I love you, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.